Hello guys, welcome back to my channel. As you can see in the picture today, let's start the story of what if Issei become a villain in High School DxD Part 1, Prologue. Having enough, Issei looks down at the party that was happening. This was due to the sealing and defeat of the Beast of Apocalypse known as Trehexer 666. This was due to the party happening at the Hyade residence. Everyone was present, from majority of the faction leaders to his friends. He noticed the Occult Research Club, Student Council, and several of the other faction members as well. He was holding a glass of Diet Coke watching down. Honestly, why do I even bother? Issei asked with a disappointed sigh. This party was for Issei, that is what many would think. However, that was not the case. It was for his younger brother Dihaidu, the bearer of Crumb Critch. Every single girl chose him to be his lover no matter what happens. They think that he was the hero that fought their battles and defeated the Beast of the Apocalypse. Oh, how wrong they were. Issei was the one to fight all their battles, but every time, D took the credit for the battles, no matter how much he talked about it. Many refused to believe it. So much so that they considered him to be nothing but a liar and a deceiver. One might even think that he was hated among the factions. Furthermore, Day and his friends spread an infamous rumor of him being a pervert. This caused his life to worsen even more, no matter where he was, whether in the human world or the supernatural world. Nobody listened, nobody accepted him, and hated him even more, except for a very few people. One of them was Drake, his only best friend. Initially, their relationship was platonic, but eventually, they became close friends. Drake was so much trusted that he revealed his secrets to him. The trust was more than his own family. The other was Nyx, the primordial goddess of night. One might even think that they are lovers, or at the very least those who know about him. That being only Drake and a few others, she had faith in him more than anyone else. It was because of his desire and determination to save Engvold from her clutches that made her fall for him. This made Nyx jealous. She never had anyone save her before. However, what happened next angered her to no bounds. Engvold, like the rest, was, unfortunately, manipulated by D into thinking that he was her knight in shining armor. As a result, she hated Issei, which nearly caused him to fall into despair. Nyx was arrested. She last saw Issei having a look of complete sadness. She looked at him in the eye before teleporting away. After a while, he started to visit her in secret without anyone detecting him. And since nobody would know of his disappearance, since many refused to care where he went, he managed to sneak in and meet Nyx. During their fight, Issei noticed her jealousy, which he realized it later, as he wanted to ask her about it. When he got there, however, he was surprised by a hug from the primordial goddess. She had magic seals all over her body to prevent her from escaping. Moments later, he reciprocated the hug, and they both had a nice conversation. There, he realized Nyx was always alone. Not even her brother Erebus visited her. He never truly understood why she kidnapped Engvold, but he assumed that because she wanted someone to talk to. When it was time for him to leave, Nyx did not want him to go, but she understood that they would come to know. Issei made a promise of visiting her again, and perhaps one day freeing her, which made her blush. She was happy to have someone that she will talk to, and over time, they started to share their secrets. As time passed, she was angry and disappointed in the factions and the girls, especially Engvold, and hated D even more, and time again, she started to fall for Issei, and one day, she would confess to Issei. Issei became depressed. He still couldn't find a way to free her without her being tracked by the factions or worse, getting her injured or killed. Despite this, he refused to give up. Hardna, the boosted gear manifested as a dragon, spoke. His best friend, Dreg. I know, Dreg, no matter what I do, I can't find a way to free her, but there has got to be something that should be helpful in a way. Try using the Book of Conceptual Records, your other sacred gear, Dreg suggested with a bit of hope. The Book of Conceptual Records was a legendary and mythical book. It was a book with a brown covering with golden embroidery surrounding its edges. It had the symbol of God on its spine, which was gold in color. Both the front cover and back cover had additional gold embroidery, which looked like a planet on it. Issei summoned the book. He looked at it. In amazement, he found this book while he was away for a mission. Nobody knew of this, and the gear accepted him without any problem as if it chose its new wielder. Once opened, the book had the records of every sacred gear up to date, including the undiscovered ones like Narek Curie or Alphika Tyrant, which he had never heard of. This also included the Long Ionis, as well as other sacred gears known. In addition to that, it also allows the user to create any sacred gear he so desires. He tried this with Divine Dividing, and lo and behold, 2 wings had came on his back, which performed the same way the regular Divine Dividing would do. He could even alter the gear and remove any and all limitations, allowing him to use the gear to their fullest potential. In other words, he can clone the said sacred gear and use it to its full potential without the original user being able to sense or the heaven system detecting its presence. This was great for the factions not finding out about this sacred gear. Issei theorized this sacred gear to be beyond Longinus tier. Anyone who wielded this was almost akin to a god. Nothing, Drake, nothing, I got nothing, Issei spoke in a tone full of sadness. Come on, partner, you never gave up fighting against Trahixa, you never gave up fighting any of your former foes, why you are giving up now? Drake cheered his host up. Drake remembered that aside from Nixon himself, Great Red and Office trusted him as well. They were able to see the reality of Die Hideout. Office even went so far as to help them see, but nobody trusted her. She eventually gave up as well. Issei started to rack his brain. He always found a way to defeat his foes, but everyone only saw Die to be their savior. It then clicked, he had to wait for the right opportunity. However, he refused to help the factions ever again. They were never grateful to him to begin with and only insulted and humiliated him. They are on their own, and when they have to deal with a bigger threat, Issei will not help them, never again. Unless he has something to gain in return, no more selflessness. I have an idea. Issei spoke with a tone of seriousness. Partner, are you sure of this? You know they live in your house, right? Drake spoke with a hint of concern. Indeed, we are not helping them. Let Die do it himself. I no longer will help them ever again unless I have something to gain. They are on their own. Let's see how far they get, Issei declared with a cold tone. Brady could only watch his host with surprise. The boy that once helped the factions was gone, killed by the same people he protected and cherished unconditionally. He also was not a big fan of the factions either, and he could not blame him for having that thought process. But what is your goal now that you don't want to help the supernatural faction? Drake had asked after declaring with conviction, I desire peace if anything, and it does not matter if innocent blood needs to be spilled. I never achieved peace because of my brother twisting the story, making the whole world think like I am the bad guy. People like them are not worth protecting, Issei responded with conviction. But we cannot judge people, buddy, especially when we ourselves are not perfect. Drake spoke with slight sadness and anger in his voice. Issei looked at him and responded. As long as humanity exists, hate will also exist. Love ends when betrayal begins, and I have always experienced an endless stream of betrayal. No matter what I do, I am always the bad guy. To them, Issei spoke with anger. He no longer felt sad for his past with them, but now he was angry. You are willing to change the world even if it stains your hands with innocent blood? Drake asked in a serious tone. Drake, I no longer desire to do good things, but I desire to do great things. As I opened the book, he saw the information of every single sacred gear, which he could replicate and use it for himself. He would have broken out Nyx a long time ago, but this would make her hunted, and he did not want to risk her life. He was going to make the factions release her one way or another. This was one of his new goals. In that case, the Red Dragon Emperor is with you. Best buddy Drake spoke with a tone of happiness. Issei smiled at the gear as he closed the book and summoned it so that no one could see the book. Thank you, friend. I know you will be by my side, Issei spoke with a genuine smile before getting up and heading to his room. He will find a way to do so. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Issei, bringing back Chibi Rainer from the dead by accident. 1 year later, Underworld, 5:30 a.m. 1 year has passed since the events of the sealing of the beast. There were the 3 heroes. They were Dai Heidu, the youngest of the Heidu children. He looked just like his older brother Issei. However, unlike them, he was fair-skinned and had shorter hair. He wielded 2 twin gauntlets, called crescent moon gauntlets, that housed the soul of the strongest evil dragon, Chrome Crouch. The second one was Ika, the younger sister of Issei. She was a beautiful brown-haired girl with wavy long-length hair. She also had a huge chest as well as a pretty face. One might state that she had a lot of similarities in terms of looks when compared to Issei. She wielded the Chaos Talon, a blue talon that covered her entire left hand. It almost felt like the whole weapon covered his hand. And finally, the third hero, Valerie Lucifer, was described to be a slim young woman of below average height. She has long, wide hair which curls slightly at the ends, with two bangs framing her face and reaching down to her chest. Her hairstyle's most distinctive trait is a short, upward ponytail, obtained by gathering and tying the hair covering her forehead. She has large blue eyes and a curvy, voluptuous body with large breasts. All three were considered heroes, but one of them was an outstanding hero. However, for months, an entity had attacked them. He was a bald-headed being with blue-haired marks that had a blue tattoo on his forehead. He was 2 meters tall in height. He had a metal jaw and wore skin-tight red-colored body armor draped in a half-cape of black cloth. The entity had decided to judge one of the seraphs of heaven, that being Gabriel, for the sins she had committed. None of the angels under her could stop him. He judged her in the name of her father. He used one of his abilities to completely traumatize her, causing her to have a lifeless look. Many didn't understand whom the entity talked about. In the aftermath, Gabriel was completely traumatized. She often used to scream in what seemed to be many as pain and fear, at random times. It was not due to the fear of the man or fear itself. Several wanted to look for him, but he was never seen again, at least not until 2 months ago, where he attacked members of Team DXD, leaving several injured, some even hospitalized. Many assumed Dai would be able to stop him, but he failed to do so. Furthermore, the man used a trick that turned Engvold singing against Dai or anyone that was dragon or have dragon-based sacred ears. As a result, instead of helping them, it instead hurt them, which the entity seemed to be enjoying a lot, especially when Dai was suffering. In the aftermath, Engvold realized that her singing actually was harming her friends, causing her to stop using it, since now she and many others deemed her sacred gear to be dangerous. This caused a great blow to her morale because she loved singing. Scene change. Underworld Conference Room, 6 a.m. Many leaders had gathered here in the conference room, that being from different factions. From the devil's side, it was the 4 Satans, Sergix Lucifer, Seraphil Leviathan, Ajuka Beelzebub and Falbium Asmodeus. They were accompanied by Graphia Lucifuge, Sergix Queen. From the angels' side was Archangel Michael, Seraph Gabriel and Seraph Raphael. They were accompanied by their escorts Griselda Quarta and Irina Shidu. From the fallen angels' side were the current Governor General Shimizai along with Kader Azazel, Barak Lan-Numa. From the yokai side were Queen Yasaka and her daughter Kanu. From the vampires, it was Olmenhide Karnstein and Valerie Teeps. From the Norse side were the All-Father Odin, his wife Freya, their sons Thor and Vidar, as well as the Valkyrie Gonal, who was Roswei's grandmother. From the Greek side was god of lightning Zeus, goddess of marriage Hera, god of the seas Poseidon, virgin goddess of the hunt Artemis, and finally the Greek god of messages Hermes. From the Hindu side, there was one member of the Trimurti, that being Shiva, along with his wife Parvati, and the god of thunder Indra, along with Shiva's escort Mahabali. Although he hated being in the same room as Indra, he had to tolerate him for a few hours. And finally from Team DXD, where the current leader Dolio Gesualdo, Michael Joker, the sub-leader Sun Wukong, first generation, along with Ria's peerage, Sona's peerage, Cypheria's peerage, Sarah Erg's peerage, and finally Dai's peerage, with Tobio Ikasa's /dog team, Yulong, and Valerie Vali, Lucifer's team. Is everyone here? Sergix asks, gaining nods from most of them. In that case, let us begin. I think you are familiar with the bald man's attack that had happened in the span of 2 months, right? Sergix asked with a grim tone. We all are, Sergix. He took down the DXD team like they were like mere children. Azazel spoke with an annoyed tone. He was not happy with what had happened. 1 is coincidence, 2, that's an attack. Zeus gritted his teeth in anger. He then banged his table and shouted, if he attacks another time, we might lose someone important. Zeus looked, earning looks of shock and surprise. Understanding the situation, Michael spoke, trying to calm Zeus down. We understand the situation, but shouting will not help clear the matters, Lord Zeus. Michael's words managed to calm them down, while Zeus apologized for his actions with his pantheon calming him down just to make sure. I tried dividing his power, but it did not work, Vali spoke with an irritated tone. She hated losing to him. This garnered everyone's attention. He did not even fight against us seriously. We were just mere children to him, Dee spoke with a frustrated tone while clenching his fists. He has somehow dealt with us, but even then, I did not sense any will of him to fight against us despite us losing to him. Sun Wukong spoke seriously, causing Dai to grit his teeth in anger. This being was able to possess an angel, use telekinesis, and throw the DXD team around like they were rag dolls, and use music of Miss Leviathan against you. He is not to be taken lightly, Athena spoke while pointing to the DXD team. I am sorry, had I not allowed him to mimic my songs, none of this would have happened. Engvold spoke while putting her head down. She was guilty for being responsible for it. It's not your fault, Engvold. Don't beat yourself for something you had no control on, Vali spoke while putting her hand on her, trying to calm her down. Albion agreed to her carrier's words. However, Tobio did not have a look of tranquility. It was after he saw a recording that belonged to another of man's fight that had happened with someone he never expected. Many of you might not believe, but the only one that was able to face off against the man was Issei Haidu. Tobio spoke, surprising many. Everyone refused to believe that Issei would fight against him, let alone tie with him. You're kidding. All he does is get in everyone's way. Vali exclaimed angrily. No, take a look, Tobio showed the video recording. Everyone looked at the recording that Tobio had played on the video player, as they saw Issei himself face off against the man in the recording. Recording. So you are the one that is getting in my way, the man spoke from the screen with Issei looking him dead in the eye. Issei removed a book, and from that, 2 pair of wings appeared on his back. This was divine dividing. The man chuckled watching this as he asked, Divine dividing, the gear of that girl, what makes you think that would work? The man taunted Issei, however, he was unaffected. It might just work, who knows? It is just that Vali doesn't even have access to the full potential of the gear. I managed to unlock it. Issei spoke seriously. He then asked, what should I call you? Do you have a name? Call me Malik, and today is going to be your end, Issei. Hi, dude. Malik spoke with a grin despite it not being visible. Very well then, Malik, don't blame me for what happens. Balance break. Issei entered into his balance breaker. It looked just like Vali's own balance breaker. Malik tried to use telekinesis, but Issei had a simple dagger on his left side that nullified the balance break. Damn it. You have that blade. That gear counters my telekinesis, Malik shouted angrily as Issei started to use divide on him. He started to lose his power. Issei went towards Malik as he used a red blade to fight off against Issei, with the latter being surprisingly good with a sword, blocking most of the strikes and evading some of it with ease. He then slashed Malik, causing his grip to loosen. Issei ended the fight with a kick. As he dropped his blade, he was in his knees as Issei pointed his blade to his neck and spoke, Any last words? Just to see you. But that Malik started to glow, forcing Issei behind. He then escaped a while later. There was no Malik, or his blade with him. Issei looked at this and gritted his teeth and exclaimed, Damn it! Issei flew away using the wings. After Malik had escaped, the recording then stopped. End of recording. Many were shocked seeing this, however, several were angry, especially Vali, Albion and D. D assumed that he should not deserve this power, while Albion and Vali were angry due to him having copied divine dividing to defeat him. When they failed to do so, Vali shouted angrily. Her aura was radiating throughout the office as Azazel shouted in response. I know you are mad, Vali, Albion, but please calm down, there is nothing we can do, it's all in the past. Vali looked at him and calmed down moments later. She took a deep breath and gritted her teeth while trying to control her anger. She was not happy with what happened. It seems like the brat is hiding his true strength. He is more than what he is. Odin spoke while rubbing his chin. His tone was calm, but he was worried about his strength. All this time, he was hiding it, and there was no change in the system. He was able to copy one of the long and its abilities, not to mention that book allowed him to copy the gear. We don't know what that is. Michael spoke with annoyance. He was not happy with the fact that his Issei had a long like that without him coming to know, but despite this, some found the recording to be off, especially those that were smart, like Almenguide Karnstein, Ajuka Beelzebub, Sona Citri, Seraphol Leviathan, and Azazel. Even Tobio and Athena were put off by the fight, as they knew that both of them seemed to acting and were very good at it as well. Not to mention, everyone noticed the book seeing it for the very first time. Is it just me, or was this or a sort of an act? Ajuka thought. Well, both of them did not change their places when they fought. Either way, I will be sending Graphia to fetch Issei. He should be here in a few minutes, hopefully. Sergius spoke with a serious tone. With the latter leaving the room, the others could only wait for him to show up. That disgrace of my brother hid his real strength from me. I will make him regret it. Dai thought with anger and hatred. All he could do is wait for him to show up. Scene change. Ida residence, 7 p.m. Issei was sitting on the roof of the residence. He looked at the mortis blade. It still needed to be worked upon. It was a sacred gear that can kill gods. He then spoke. I need to work on this. The gods are known to have strong vitality. Issei spoke in a calm tone. He then remembered the camera that was present. Signing, he wondered how the factions would react when they found out about this. So many would want answers from me. I can imagine what will happen, especially with them. Issei spoke coldly, and the word them was spoke with disgust. Moments later, a magic circle appeared. It was Graphia Lucifuge. Seeing him sitting on the roof, he gave a cold glare to her and asked, What do you want, Gracia? I do. The faction leaders have asked you to come to the meeting. Gracia spoke with a serious tone as Issei scoffed and responded. If I don't come then, what will you do? Issei spoke with a mocking smile. Then you give me no choice. Gracia was ready to bring him by force. Issei sighs in response, as a book comes in hand. I can make a sacred gear that will siphon your powers away, and I can use it for myself. You will be powerless without them. Not to mention, I can create another gear that can do same thing Malik did to the Seraph. If I wanted to, as they spoke in a cold tone, as two claws appeared, he was ready to fight. The spider-neutral look, Graphia had beads of sweat. She remembered the hallucinations that Malik put Gabriel through. She had a slight fear of what Issei will do to her. Issei then remembered that this could be one of the ways he could free Nyx, but at the same time, he has to be careful. He did not trust any of the faction leaders, and they can try to remove the book of conceptual records from him. I need to make some security systems to the book. Let's see how the factions will remove them from me, Issei thought with a mocking grin. He looked at Graphia, who was worried on what Issei will do to her. As he spoke, let's get this over with. Issei spoke with a cold tone. He dispelled the book and the gears and headed with Graphia to the meeting room. Scene change. Underworld Conference Room, 7:30 a.m. All the leaders in the room heard two footsteps approaching them. Dai hid his annoyance with a fake smile, while some gods looked at him with curiosity. Issei looked at the scene with no interest. He looked at the floor, wanting to go home and work on the Martis blade. It still needed some work to do so. Thank you, Graphia, for bringing him here. Sergius spoke with a smile to his queen. With the latter nodding and leaving, he turned his attention to Issei, who was not interested in even looking at them. Brother, have some respect for the leaders. Ike spoke, clearly annoyed by her brother's attitude. Issei did not bother to hear his sister's voice as Azazel spoke. Boy, we need to ask you some questions about Malik. Will you answer them? Azazel asked in a serious tone. No. Issei responded while looking at the former Governor General dead in the eye. You're not going to answer. Hi, don't you realize how important this is? Sona spoke in a serious tone. Do you want me to answer? What do I get in return? Issei spoke while thinking that this would be his chance to put forward his request. Kid, you have no right to demand us for information. Zeus exclaimed in an angered tone. He was about to get up, with Issei speaking with a chuckle. He showed no fear to the king of Olympus. Information ain't cheap. You want me to tell you about Malik, you need to give me something valuable in return. It is just that he does not want to help his brother. Asia spoke with a glare. She was not happy with what Issei had spoken, to which Issei smiled. You are right on that one, my dear foster sister. I am not going to help anyone till I get something valuable in return. And where the fuck is my Diet Coke? I ordered it 15 minutes ago. Issei shouted in annoyance. Issei's words made many appalled by what he just spoke. Everyone was shocked by his attitude, while the leaders were embarrassed at the pillar of the faction's brother and his attitude. A few minutes later, a maid showed up with a can, as Issei spoke with happiness. Finally, my Diet Coke. Issei opened the can and drank a little to check its taste. He looked at them and spoke. Now we may continue with the negotiation, or should everyone go home, your choice. Well, Sergius spoke while rubbing his head. What is that you want in return? Let me think. I demand the release of the primordial goddess Nyx in return. Issei spoke with a smile. The drink really refreshed his state. I refuse. Zeus responded in a cold manner. He hated Issei's attitude, and Issei spoke with a shrug. Well then, you are on your own with Malik? Are you crazy? She will control Engvold and attack us. Dai scolded his older brother, who didn't seem to care about the situation. Not my monkeys, not my circus. That is the price for the information. Issei spoke with a glare. He hardly cared what happens to Engvold at this point. In that case, we can copy his memories to see about Malik. Dai spoke with fury as Issei responded. Try it, brother. I can make a gear making me immune to memory siphoning. You only thought of that because you are surrounded, Dai taunted Issei with a mocking smile. However, Issei was unaffected. Then go ahead. I don't think your harem of monkeys will stop you, Issei responded in a mocking tone, with Dai going ahead to do so, only to be stopped by Chrome Crouch, who manifested in the gear. Don't do it. It's a trap. Crom spoke, warning his host from making a stupid mistake. Many were shocked by this as Issei then spoke. It seems like there are some smart people in this room. Issei spoke with a smile as Crom responded. Not to mention you are even hiding an ace up your sleeve. Crom spoke with a slightly worried tone. I was trying to sleep, but they had to ruin it. Don't they, Crom Crouch? An unknown voice was heard. Those that knew of the voice were shocked as Azazel spoke with a shock. You're the Red Dragon Emperor. Indeed I am, and before you ask, this is the original boosted gear, not a copy created by the book. Issei spoke with a smirk as Riaz asked, but how? Why you only showed us your T twice critical? I saw no reason to show this to you, plus you never asked before. Issei spoke with a neutral tone. They never bothered to ask him about his sacred gear since Issei's manifested during his fight against Raynor, but reverted to its twice critical forms soon after the fight. Not to mention, Dai took credit for beating the fallen angel, which made Issei lose Asia as well, as she saw Dai as her savior. Not to mention Rhea supported Dai's claims, making Asia believe that Issei was just a perverted liar. That's right, Crow and Bat, my partner made the right choice of not telling you anything. Drake spoke with a serious tone. Vali Lucifer connected the dots. If he was the Red Dragon Emperor, and if he never used his sacred gear in his fight against Malik, this meant that he was much more powerful than what he lets on. And if we had that book, then we are done for. Vali thought with fear, afraid of what Issei is capable of. She looked down upon him and was worried on what he might do next. Since you have the gear that makes you, Zeus was interrupted when Vali spoke. No. You don't understand. He never used the boosted gear in his fight against Malik. Vali spoke with fear, scared of what Issei was potentially capable of. He is way above all of us. Vali ended with a chilling message to everyone. They see Issei grinning maniacally. The desire of Vali to fight her eternal rival was gone. That's right. With a book of conceptual records and the boosted gear, I am unstoppable. Issei laughed maniacally, with many looking at him with shock and fear and watched this. Issei generated some fire, which when added cold, had no effect on the flames. The boosted gear has no limiter. Michael spoke with fear, looking at the monster in front of him. Everyone understood at what Issei is capable of. They were worried on what he might do next. Exactly, Issei spoke with a tone of innocence as he continued, Look, I just desire peace. That's all. But I can never have that because of him. Issei continued while giving D repeated glances. Well, that was some meeting. I just want to live my life at tranquility. But I can't because you think I should serve you just because I wield the boosted gear and have the power to do so. Nothing is free, and you should know that. Issei mentioned the obvious present to them. Many did not know what to answer as Zeus spoke. You don't understand what's at stake here. Innocent lives are going to die because of your selfishness. Zeus spoke while gritting his teeth. Several of the leaders agreed to Zeus. Like I said, all you need to do is accept my offer, and the information is yours. Issei spoke with a smile. And besides, there are people that have betrayed the factions for more information. Right, Azazel? Issei spoke looking towards Azazel and Vala. You both couldn't help but agree to his points. Look, brother, stop your arrogant attitude and help us, Ika scolded him, to which Issei scoffed and responded, You are challenging me. Ika gulped in nervousness. Her brother was not to be meddled with. Issei then continued. I have heard enough. Stop this attitude. Stop that attitude. Well, I will stop, 'cause you ain't getting anything from me. Like I said before, not my monkeys, not my circus. Your problems are no longer mine. You can do what you want. Issei headed outside using a ring he had created that allows him to create portals. Issei turned his head to the side and spoke with a cold tone. Just let me know when you change your mind. K? You know what to do if you need the information. Issei teleported back, leaving several angry at what happened, especially D and Zeus. They were helpless as Issei gave them a clear message. Either you accept my deal or suffer death and destruction. Chapter 1 Unbearable Truth. After Issei left and headed back to his house, the faction leaders were in a rocky situation. They needed information from Issei, and he was nowhere to be found. He had just disappeared. I wanted to teach Issei a lesson, but there was no Issei. He wanted to beat the truth out from Issei, but without him, there was no way to do so. He gritted his teeth in anger and accepted defeat. 2 days had passed since he was gone. Nobody knew where he went. It was like the earth swallowed him up. However, things only had gotten worse later on as Malik once again attacked. He had attacked the factions with a much greater force, leaving more casualties. He was laying waste to the factions wherever he went. Nobody could find a way to stop him so far. This left a bitter taste in his mouth. Issei had come back from his visit as he was not in a mood to deal with any of his family members. He was working on the final touches of the Mortis Blade, the gods slaying sacred gear. It was almost done when his door suddenly exploded. What the Issei exclaimed in surprise, he saw the door was exploded by none other than a voluptuous black-haired beauty. Issei was not happy seeing her, however. He closed the book and it disappeared. There is something called as knocking, Himajima. Issei shouted. He was ready to teach her a lesson, but all he saw was Akino smiling towards him. Oh, that is just punishment for insulting my Anata. It's gonna get a whole lot worse for you, foo foo foo. Akino spoke with a sweet smile as lightning crackled between her palms and fingers. Akino may have the same smile, however, she was internally furious. Nobody insults her darling and gets away with it. Issei, on the other hand, was not the same Issei that would normally take beating from someone like her, as he spoke with a growl. Don't blame me for what happens next then. Unbeknownst to Akino, Issei's eyes had turned red. He was ready to leave a scar on her to deal with her once and for all. He had a sinister grin. Scene change. Akendo came outside the room with a lost look on her face. She walked aimlessly towards the couch as she slumped on it with a lifeless look on her face. Akendo sat on the couch. Whatever Issei did to her traumatized her. She saw Daiharu passing by. She spoke. Akino spoke weakly, trying to garner his attention. Not now, Akino, I have some work to do. Dai spoke, however. When he saw Akino in the state, he shouted in worry. Akino, what happened? Dai exclaimed as he rushed to Akino. He did not know what to do. Akino failed to respond as Dai assumed that this was Malik's doing. Out of all the girls, Akino was the most emotionally dependent on Dai. But Dai did not know what to do. He had no choice but to call the other girls to leave since he had to do a lot of work. The other girls deduced that this was Malik's doing. his attacks have become more and more aggressive in just 2 days. If anything, they believe that this is just the beginning, and the fact that he managed to sneak in here showed how dangerous he is, making them fear him. Engvold looked into her condition in sadness. She had been slipping into deep slumbers over and over again. The past few days she assumed that her sickness had gone due to the medicine that I gave her. However, in reality, it was Issei that made the medicine. How is this possible? Engvold spoke with worry and fear. Engvold noticed that her illness returning was not a good sign. She had approached him multiple times, but he ignored her. This caused her great sadness and depression. Furthermore, her illness reduced her magic power significantly, which almost would make her even more weak than she already is. If I die, why are you ignoring me? Engvold murmured with sadness. She wanted Dee's support more than ever. But every time she approached him, he ignored him, making excuses of either training or preparing for another meeting. Engvold left the room. She was worried that her sickness would return. She wanted to go for a walk to refresh her mind. Engvold had heard someone from upstairs talking to someone. As she looked, she heard more noise. Yeah, the mortis blade needs some work. After that, even the gods will not be a problem for me to deal with, the person spoke in a calm voice. Issei? Engvold spoke in a surprised tone. She wondered what Issei was talking about, and against her better judgment, she headed up there. Little did she know that her visit to the top will prove to be a wake-up call for her. Scene change. Engvold reached the roof, where she saw Issei talking to a cloaked man. She wondered what he was talking about. Ever since the Malik's attack, many had wanted to talk to Issei in order to convince him to help, but every time, he was either missing or never showed up. She wondered, what is he doing here, or who is he talking to? Indeed, after that we will be unstoppable. No god or devil will be able to touch us, the figure spoke with a smile. Engvold was shocked and horrified. Who was Issei talking to? Even then, it's a shame that the factions are in a toss. I mean, they have no way of dealing with the current threat, Issei spoke in a mocking tone. Not to mention, their hero is nothing but a pizer and a liar. It is a shame that the factions are fools, and their leaders are nothing but prideful idiots. The cloaked man spoke with a mocking tone. This irritated and angered Engvold as she thought, who the hell is he? Engvold thought angered as they insulted her lover and the rest of the factions. I guess, but then again, the factions are not my problem. They can do whatever they want, whenever they want, Issei spoke in a cold tone, not caring for the factions anymore. His voice was as cold as nitrogen, eyes with no warmth or emotion at all. Engvold was surprised by this. She had never seen Issei speak in such a cold manner. Every time Issei spoke to her, it was in a calm and warm manner, but she was cold to him, thinking that he was a liar. Speaking of which, what more sacred gears are you planning to recreate? The man asked with interest, wondering what Issei was thinking. I am planning to recreate the true Longinus. Once the mortis blade is done, Cao will never be able to use the full potential of the sacred gear due to gods will limiting the spear's capabilities. I can't blame him for that. And besides, even his other balance breaker, Polar Knight Chakravartin, is pretty capable. Issei spoke while rubbing his chin. His tone was in complete analysis of the gear. That's true. I mean, you did manage to defeat him even before finding the book, that is. But then again, your brother, as always, took credit for what you did. Right. The man spoke with a slight sadness in his tone. Don't feel sad, it's pointless. And besides, I think the medicine for Engvold should be wearing off very soon, right? Issei spoke in a neutral tone. Engvold was surprised by this. How would Issei know about the medicine? Dee was the one that gave it to me. Engvold thought with disbelief. But even then, why did you help her back? Then the man asked Issei as Issei sighed. I loved her. Once upon a time, that is why I gave her the medicine. Even then, it was a temporary fix since it was still in its prototype stage. That is why it was temporary. But then she chose my brother. Issei spoke with a sad tone. Honestly, it still pained me back then that she was with my brother, and even then, I tried to convince her that I was the one to save her. But then Issei trailed off in sadness. She called you a liar and went to your brother. The man ended it with equal sadness. Issei only looked away and spoke with a sad tone. Yeah. Engvold was surprised by this. She knew of Issei's feelings of her, but she belonged to Dai. She chose him because he was the one to save her. She refused to believe him, and many others did support Dai, so she believed in him that he was her savior, and Issei was a liar. My heart was hurting seeing those two together, and my soul was dying from seeing them together. But I guess I need to accept the truth that she wasn't meant for me, Issei ended with a sad tone. Okay, but even then, that doesn't answer my question properly. If you knew she was rude, then you should have let her wither away. Why did you give her the medicine? The man asked Issei, who responded, anyone would have helped her. I just did the right thing. Back then, Issei murmured the last part. You are a good person, Issei. You have to sometimes get over your love. She wasn't meant for you, and you realize this. You just have to find the one you love. The man gave some of his words of wisdom as he continued, not to mention, you saved her from Nyx, and I doubt that she would be the same if you hadn't reached at the right time. But just like the others, she is blinded by the lies. Engvold kept her mouth. She refused to believe that this is happening. She looked at Issei and eventually decided to come out from the shadows. Issei and the man looked at her. He was worried that the man's secret identity will be revealed. However, he noticed Engvold had a look of sadness and anger on his face. She raised her hand to slap Issei. However, Issei grabbed her hand before it could reach his face. She struggled to get her hand free. Issei was also not happy that she attacked him. The man was ready to defend Issei, but using his free hand, he gave him a signal to stop. You better have a good reason for trying to slap me, Leviathan, Issei exclaimed with fury. Don't lie, you are not the one to save me, I was the one, you are jealous that I am with your brother. Engvold exclaimed with equal fury in her voice. Then why are you here? Why did you slap me? If you don't believe what I said, then why are you even wasting your time here? If you don't want to believe me, then don't believe my lies, Issei spoke in a cold tone. Issei released her hand and spoke. The next time you slap or hurt me, don't expect me not to fight back, Engvold. This is your last warning, Issei threatened her, leaving her flabbergasted. She never expected Issei to threaten her. He started to head towards the door and spoke in a mocking tone. I would rather date a Diet Coke bottle over you. Issei headed inside, leaving Engvold shocked. The man from earlier spoke. I am afraid you are wrong, Miss Leviathan. He's lying. I refuse to believe him. He is just jealous that I am with his brother, Engvold spoke with a cold tone. No, you are wrong, or should I say everyone is wrong. Let me show you. The man removed a recording orb, another sacred gear that is created that can store videos the size of 100 terabytes while declaring, witness the truth, queen of the false hero. The orb started to glow, revealing a small recording as the Engvold would witness something that would shock her. Recording. Scene change. I was seated on the couch with a smile. He had just managed to get Engvold's love with Crom speaking in pure fury. You are a horrible person for doing this to your brother Dai. You already have the entirety of the Orc and some members of the student council, yet you keep doing this to him. You deny him any shred of love or happiness. Crom hated his current host. He wanted to be freed from him as soon as possible, as Dee spoke with an arrogant smile. But you must admit that my plan is going pretty well. The truth will come out one day. I am only helping you because I don't have a choice. When I got sealed in the gear, you are using me for your own benefits. You use my power for your own selfish benefits. Crom spoke with a pure cold tone filled to the brim with spite. All dragons trapped in the gear can just watch and not control their host's actions. If they want to use their power, they will. You have no pride, Dai, and even if you have that one of rubbish, and every dragon has that. Crom continued in the same tone. And what about it? They will be mine in the future. And they will be my wife's, not his. Dee spoke in a sing-along tone. The bearer of dread will one day crush you and will expose you for the bizarre and liar you really are. And one day, that day will come, Crom spoke with a mocking tone. Always remember this, Dee, the first and most common rule is stealing a dragon's love. And you broke that rule. Crom ended with a mocking tone. So what? Nobody will come to know. It is not like they believe in him, Dai taunted in a mocking manner. I don't think your love will survive. Crom spoke in a mocking tone, and your actions have consequence, Dai. Remember that. Crumb ended the connection, leaving Dai with an overconfident smile, knowing that nothing will change. Recording end. Scene change. Engvold was on her knees with a man looking at her without any empathy. She had tears in her eyes as she spoke. "No, why?" Engvold spoke with a shaky and hazy voice. "She has realized the truth." The man then spoke. "But I am not done yet. You should have seen that he nearly died for your sake. This happened before the one you saw." The man removed another recording gear and showed her an additional recording. Recording. Issei was on the ground. He had several wounds on his body. He was passed out with several wounds on his body as well as a pool of blood on the ground where he was. "Partner, stay alive," Drake shouted in worry. Beside him was an unconscious Engvold and a damaged Nyx. She was also out of the fight as her godly killer virgin clothing was destroyed, leaving her naked body. "Partner, stay alive," Drake shouted in worry. Beside him was an unconscious Engvold and a damaged Nyx. She was also out of the fight as her godly killer virgin clothing was destroyed, leaving her naked body. That is when D showed up. Seeing the situation, he had a sinister smile as he spoke. "It is time to be the hero, and well, what a beauty. I must admit that my brother always had a good choice in women." D spoke with a grin, looking at Engvold. D decided to wake up Engvold and tell her the lie that he was the one that saved her. Dreg wanted to reveal the truth, but he made a promise to his partner to keep himself hidden from the rest of the supernatural world. He hated that he must follow a promise even when it ends up hurting his best friend due to his pride. He gritted his teeth in fury. He wanted to escape the gear and burn Dai down to the very soul, but there was nothing he could do. He was stuck in the gear. After that, Issei woke up. When he was being healed up, he saw the Dai with Engvold, and this broke his heart. He was too weak to talk to Engvold and reveal her the truth. Furthermore, Rias and the others were also there with them, telling that Dai was her savior, and she eventually believed their lies. Recording end. Scene change. Engvold was in her knees seeing all of this. She was crying profusely as her sacred gear reacted to her sadness. Seeing that Issei nearly died for her and Dai was nothing but a bloody liar, she got up from the ground slowly while holding the gem against her chest. I am sorry, please forgive me, Issei." Engvold spoke between sobs. She couldn't handle what she just saw. It was like a huge slap to her face. Furthermore, she tried to slap Issei, and the image of his condition. The man watched with utter coldness as the wind breeze dropped, revealing him to be none other than Malik. Now where was that girl who protected that liar with her life? Malik spoke coldly before leaving from there. The reason Engvold was unable to identify his voice was because he used magic to change his voice. As for his aura, he is capable of hiding it. Scene change. I'm Skip, brought to you by Chibi Dai. Trying to steal Chibi Issei's Diet Coke stash only for him to be sent flying by a very angry Chibi Issei. The next day, Idu residence, 9:30 a.m. Issei was heading downstairs, trying to keep his mind off from what happened yesterday, as he took his food and a can of Diet Coke for himself. Brother, can we talk? Aika looked at Issei, but was surprised when her brother did not respond to what she said. He had opened his can and started to eat his food. However, he started to become uncomfortable with all the stares. He spoke in a cold tone. What do you guys want? What we need is information about that Malik. Vala spoke in a tone hinting of anger and annoyance. Issei looked at her dead in the eye and spoke. I said it once before, and I will say it again, not my problem. Issei spoke while sipping some of his Diet Coke. Seeing as nothing was changing, he took his plate and drink and headed to the room. Even his parents were appalled by his attitude with Guru speaking. I never knew that you were selfish. I said it before, not my monkeys, not my circus father, just give me my end of the deal, and the information is yours. Issei spoke with a mocking smile before heading to his room, leaving everyone shocked by his attitude. He had understood that either D or Ika must have told them about the meeting. Scene change. Meanwhile, Engvold was in her room. Her cheeks were dry due to the tears streaming from her eyes. The truth had completely broken her, and it did not help that no one would believe her if she had told her what she had just witnessed. She was in no mood in going to Qua Academy, especially not in her current condition. Her fighting spirit had completely faded and her eyes had no life, their dark circles present due to the lack of sleep. Furthermore, her hair was completely messy. He loved me and I treated him like garbage. What kind of person am I? He was a gem, while I threw him away. I don't deserve to be with him, Engvold spoke while sobbing. Engvold opened her eyes, tears falling from them. She treated him like garbage. That is when a knock was heard from the door. Go away. I don't want to talk to anyone. Engvold angrily shouted at whoever was there. I see, maybe I should come at another time. A man spoke, recognizing the voice as Engvold got up, rushing to open the door. When she did, she saw that Issei was walking away from the room. No, Issei, wait! Engvold shouted to garner his attention. He looked at her and approached her. What happened? Issei asked. He was here for a purpose. Why are you here? Don't you hate me? Engvold asked, trailing off. I came to give you this, Issei gave her, handing her a bottle of medicine. But I don't deserve your help, Engvold spoke, to which Issei chuckled. By that, his chuckle changed to laughter. Engvold was confused. Why was Issei laughing? Her answer was also received. Oh, you are right. You don't deserve any of my help, Issei spoke with a sinister smile. And why? Engvold spoke with a feeling of dread as he spoke. Oh, you know why? You really think I was going to care for you after everything you said to me, Leviathan? After every single insult you called me, a liar, a jealous man, to name a few, did you by any chance think I care for you? Issei exclaimed, walking closer to Engvold, who started to back away. Well, I am sorry, Issei. I did not know about Dee's true nature, Engvold apologized, trying to calm the situation. She really felt guilty for what she did. However, Issei was not having any of that. Issei grabbed her by the hair, pulling her towards him as she exclaimed in slight pain. Issei, it hurts. This hurts. This is nothing compared to the pain I experienced because of you when I tried to save you from Nyx. Am I a second-hand option for you? Is that it? Issei's voice grew with every word, and Engvold started to tear up, not because of Issei pulling her hair, but because of what Issei said to her. No. Engvold retorted. Yes. That's what you think of me. I am a second-hand car, which is meant for those that don't want to buy a new car, since Issei's brother Dai is a fucking jerk. I am a replacement. After everything, you really think I care for you? No. No, no. Issei shouted as tears fell from Engvold's eyes. I do not care for you, my dear Engvold. I want you to live because I want you to see the consequences of your actions. I can't allow you to fall asleep now, can I? That will be no fun now, right, Lady Engvold? That would be mercy. And I won't let that happen. I will make you see the monster that you're responsible for creating. I want you to see as I will take away everything and anything away from you, which held some importance to you. You shall watch as I destroy and burn down the very people and world you once cared for right in front of your eyes, and you won't be able to do a thing except watching in despair, losing your beloved boyfriend, friends and family, everything by my hands, and for that to happen, Issei, screamed the last part. Drake was worried about Issei, as he sent calming energy to him. Engvold, on the other hand, had fear in her eyes. Issei released her as she dropped on her behind. Her legs were spread on the ground. She was crying endlessly. Issei took a deep breath to calm down. So you have a choice. You can either be a quitter and wither away, or you can take the medicine and live with the consequence of your action. Issei exclaimed as he kept the medicine on the ground and walked away, not bothering to see Engvold's face. But not before saying, I used to keep my heart for you, not my self-respect that you can destroy it whenever you feel like it. Issei's voice held disdain as Engvold broke down into sobs. She wept a lot that day. Issei did not even bother to check on her. Partner Drake spoke in worry. I am fine. It's just that she brought back painful memories of my past. Issei spoke with a sad tone. His eyes were teary-eyed. He did not know exactly what is going on with him now. Drake then suggested, you should have a can of Diet Coke since it will help to calm yourself. You need to have a cool mind when you deal with them. Sooner or later, Issei responded by gritting his teeth. He was going to make Dee's life a living hell when he gets the chance. Scene change. I'm Skip. I do residence 3 p.m. Issei was chilling, playing Brawl Stars on his mobile phone. He was this close to defeating that damn Hank, who has been a pain on the map, destroying his tick even away from the walls. However, as he was playing, he was being watched by the orc minus Engvold and Valerie's team. He became uncomfortable. There is something called as privacy, you know, Issei spoke in an annoyed tone as he continued playing. Aika, annoyed by her brother's attitude, snatched the phone from him with him shouting as he exclaimed in an annoyed manner, "Hey, I was this close to winning. Do you know how hard it is to deal with that brawler? God's supercell made him broken. Would you stop being a brat and help us? We need your help," Aika exclaimed in a demanding tone, ignoring her brother's attitude. Issei sighed. "Like I said, free Nix and the information is yours, that's it," Issei spoke while shrugging. "How can you be Dania's brother?" Kuroka spoke in a mocking tone while looking at her die. "Well, you see, when two people love each other," that is when Issei spoke but was interrupted by Aika. "Stop fooling around and tell us about Malik, innocent people are dying. With your help, we can save lives," Aika spoke in an annoyed tone. "Like I said, not my monkeys, not my circus," Issei spoke with a smile, as he then continued, "and besides, you can't even take a joke, that is why you are still single." Issei continued, drawing the anger of many present. "How pitiful it is," Issei spoke while nodding sideways, having a smile. Many were driven crazy by Issei's attitude. "It is because of you, Akino is in this condition," Issei Heidu exclaimed angrily, remembering the robotic state she was in and pointing to her. "First, don't blame me for your flaws, you can't solve the problems on your own," Issei spoke. Riaz was going to counter. However, Issei continued, "You ain't gonna force me to talk to something I don't want to. I am just a spectator. You guys are the fighters." Issei got up and snatched the phone from Aika, who was unable to stop her older brother. He looked at the match and sighed in relief. He had won, and it was thanks to El Primo saving the day in the last 5 seconds. The match would have been lost if Hank would have taken out his tick. Valerie, annoyed by his attitude, grabbed him by the shirt and exclaimed angrily, "Listen, I am getting tired of your attitude, so I will beat the truth from you." Issei did not seem bothered and chuckled as he spoke. "Such a shame that you couldn't beat him with the original divine dividing, yet I performed a feat stronger than yours, so you desire to have a small advantage." Issei's eyes started to glow red as he spoke. "No, you are afraid of losing since I indirectly destroyed your pride, didn't I? You all are afraid of losing, don't you?" Vali started to grow afraid. Arthur tried to separate the two, however, it was too late as Issei grabbed her by the head and before she could react, unleashed a surge of voltage at Valerie. "Abba baba baba," Vali's exclaimed as her body shook and twitched with electricity. This was not ordinary electricity. This was electricity enchanted by dragon-slaying magic. Once this was done, Vala's hand lost her grip, and she was smoking due to the electric attack. Issei then flung Vala to a nearby wall. Vala was sent flying. Upon closer inspection, Vala had blisters all over her body in different locations. She was groaning in pain. Arthur noticed a glove on his hand that had electric insignia on it. "Interesting, so Lightning Slayer gloves do work." Issei looked at the black glove as the white glow on them goes off, rendering them inactive. It was another sacred gear that Issei had developed. He had never tested it, but now it works. He put his phone inside and brought his second glove, which he wore it in his free hand. "Watch out, the lightning from the gloves has Dragon Slayer properties. It could be a Dragon Slayer weapon," Albion exclaimed in worry while trying to keep Valerie alive. "Indeed, but that is not all it is capable of," Issei spoke with a smile, causing many to get on their guard. "Why you?" Valerie growled, causing Issei's attention to turn to her. "Oh, don't be like that. I held back the lightning on the first try, but I ain't gonna stay here being quiet," Issei spoke coldly while he walked towards Valerie with his gloves glowing as they surged electric current. Valerie instinctively, she was afraid of him. However, before he could move, a sword came in front of him. This caused the electricity to disappear as he turned his attention to Kiba, who spoke in a serious tone. "Make one move, and you will regret it, Haidu. So you trade your life for hers. Interesting." Issei turned to Kiba with a malicious grin. Issei brought out his book and summoned the skull on the top of his right glove. Valerie watched as she saw the skull glowing red as she shouted to get their attention. Everyone get away from him. But it was too late, a red beam hit Kiba. As he held his head in pain, he fell on the ground screaming in pain. Issei had given him hallucination of his comrades dying over and over again. Riaz looked at him in fear. She was scared that the same thing that happened to Akino should not happen to him. She watched in horror as Kiba pleaded with tears in his eyes. Please make it stop, I beg you. I am sorry, but seeing you in this state does put a smile on my face, and your screams are like music to my ears, Issei responded with a smile. Issei was ready to increase the hallucination to Kiba, but Riaz got in the way. She looked at him in fear, tears welling up in her eyes. I will not let why you hurt anyone, so you better stop. Riaz spoke, trying to muster up the bravest voice she could. Issei only grabbed her by the chin, which is when she started to hyperventilate. Bravery reminds me of the old days. Well, let me make myself clear. I am not helping you till I get something in return, and I will not hesitate to kill you to prove my point. All right, Issei, or at least Riaz, who stopped hyperventilating. Asia and Kaneko were trembling in fear seeing what Issei had done. They only watched Issei head out of the room. Nobody dared to stop him. What kind of a person is he? Lafay exclaimed while shivering in fear, watching Kiba still screaming and crying due to the hallucinations. He is a monster that is not to be crossed with. Arthur spoke in a serious tone with Leif agreeing to what her brother said. Dai saw the whole scene with complete fear, while Crom had a mocking smile seeing his host in this condition. Ike made a mental note not to mess with him ever again. He is worse than a monster. Riaz thought with tears. She was downright afraid of his say. At this point, scene change. I'm Skip, brought to you by Chibi. Riaz trying to find who Chibi Malik is only for her to be flung away. The next day, A2 residence, 9:30 a.m. Azazel, Sergius along with his wife, Grafia, Adan, and Michael were all present as they remembered what Issei did yesterday. They were all serious on what happened. While it seems like the Red Dragon won't hesitate to torture and kill if we mess with him, Azazel spoke with worry, remembering the blisters on his adoptive daughter. Sergius gritted his teeth in fury, remembering his sister and her peerage's condition. And if we add to the sacred gears he can copy and use, he is someone to fear, Odin spoke while stroking his beard. Michael shivered due to the fact that he can mimic the truth idea of the true loneliness. Many remembered how Valerie and Kiba suffered. As Valerie was still recovering from the blisters Issei gave her, Azazel was filled with dread that Issei is able to use Dragon Slayer magic. As this was going on, Engvold came in with drinks, mostly tea for everyone. As she brought in a tray full of them, Dee went to greet her, mainly to show that their relationship was going well. But Engvold walked past him, much to his surprise. While it seems like our pillar is having a lover's quarrel with one of his women, Auden spoke in a tone full of jokes. He changed his tone and spoke in a serious one, but leaving that aside, we need to find a way to negotiate with him. After the drinks were placed, Engvold kept the tray down on a free table as she stood beside her king. Dee, for some unknown reason, felt nervousness due to the staring Engvold was giving him. Azazel was looking at the sofa as Valerie Lucifer, who was in the same condition as Riaz Gregori and her peerage, wondering what the actual hell is going on in this house now. Azazel thought, trying to make sense of what is going on. No. He can't be free, Riaz spoke, garnering the attention of the others. He is not afraid of torturing and killing us. He should be locked up. Ria's voice was filled with fear. She remembered how helpless she was when Issei completely defeated Kiba and Valerie while barely trying. I am sorry, Gregori, but our hands are tight. Auden spoke with a serious tone. However, even he felt horrible asking for Issei's help despite what he did to them. If we need a fighting chance against Malik, we need his help. But Riaz tried to find an excuse only for Sergius to interject her and respond. I am sorry, Riaz, but right now Issei's help is necessary for the factions. We have no choice. Riaz looked in horror, as she did not have her brother's support. Well, all we need to do is convince Zeus to release Nyx. It is the only way we can get Issei's support, Azazel spoke in a serious tone. But how? Michael asked. Zeus is not fond of Issei because of his last encounter, and he will not release Nyx, knowing what she is capable of. We need to find a way to convince him. Malik is not going to stop his attacks, and it won't be time until we will be in such a situation that Malik will have his quartered surges spoke as dread emanated from his voice. He was worried about his family and faction since Malik does not care who is next on the assault. Not to mention the devils, the fallen and the Greek are suffering the most casualties. Sergic's voice was agreed by Azazel as well since the recent attack took a lot of lives. If this continues, then everyone will be wiped out. This is it for the meeting. Someone needs to convince Zeus or we are done for. Sergic has ended the meeting as the leaders teleported back to their homes. Engvold took the tray and started to head back inside as Dai held her shoulder. What do you want? Dai Engvold spoke, trying her best not to get angry at what Dee was doing. I wanted to ask, are you alright? You have been acting distant lately. Dee asked with concern, however, he only did so that she thinks that he is concerned for her. No. I just have a lot of work. Now if you will excuse me, I need to talk to someone. Engvold spoke in a neutral tone. She wanted to leave the room as soon as possible as she did not want to be near him anymore. I wondered what was wrong as he could not understand why Engvold was so distant from him. She has been acting like this since 2 days. She refused to talk to him, or even go near him. Even the other girls were confused by what had happened. They needed to talk to Engvold sometime later. Scene change. Rooftop, Haida residence, 11 a.m. Issei was watching the entire meeting from one of his recording cameras as he spoke with an angered tone. Nobody says it. I am cursed with these powers in my whole life. I have been living his life, Issei spoke coldly as he continued with a sinister smile. I surpass the truth from all. I will be their judge, jury, and executioner. There was no plan Issei had for the factions, but that was not needed since the factions don't stand a chance against him. I was once their true hero, but nobody believed me no matter how much I tried. Issei spoke with slight anger remembering his past, but now it will be fun when their true hero turns into their worst enemy. Issei spoke coldly. Issei remembered 2 instances of his memory. The first was when he showed Seraph Gabriel hallucinations belonging to what happened to him and his memories. With the help of Malik, his goal was to take the happiness from her by showing a fraction of the truth. He tried to help her before, but no matter how pure you are, there will always be a dark side. Heck, even Lucifer and Azazel were once angels, just like Gabriel. She talked behind his back and insulted him about how much of a pervert he is and how useless he is. That of course this was Dee's work, they were wrong, and the true useless is his brother. The second one was when Aquino tried to torture him for speaking ill of Anata. However, Issei used the same sacred gear that he had used on Kiba to make her hallucinate her mother's demise over and over again. She became so detached from reality, recalling her mother's demise over and over again, resulting in her emotions becoming robot-like. Issei was expecting her to turn insane, but it seemed like that did not work. And honestly, he wanted to do this to the others, especially Riez, Kuroka, Aika and Yasaka, but he saw that nothing would change. He could show them his superiority, and show how much worthless they are, but he wondered whether they would even learn. Realizing that they never loved or cared for him, he decided to change his mind. Instead, he had other plans on dealing with them. He knew each of their weaknesses and used it to his advantage. They had relationships, they had loved ones, and all of them had one strength. They all depended on his brother, and once the truth is revealed, well, let's just say most of the girls will become husks like Akeno, and instead of doing it himself one by one, he can hit multiple birds with a single stone. Furthermore, girls of Dai like Yasaka and Saravel had more than one weakness, and that being Yasaka's daughter Kanu and Saravel's sister Sona. If he went after them and attacked them, then he can only imagine the dread their faces would have. They would completely lose their will to fight, and they would become distressed and fall into despair. He can't wait to enjoy their suffering. Enjoy your love life while you can die. Soon your real face will come to everyone, just you wait. And besides, to quote from a certain joker, all it takes is one bad day to change a man's life. Issei spoke with a grin. Normally he would do it right away, but he waited for the right opportunity to expose him. The reason was that he waited for the factions to become desperate, and when they become too desperate, the people of the factions will lose faith in their respective leaders, and when the time is ripe, he will expose it to them, thus causing the morale to crumble to the point of no return. All he needs to do is push one domino, and the rest will fall down automatically. However, he had another priority he needed to secure, and this would fall in line when the morale of the factions is at an all-time low. It was the rescue of Nyx. He will achieve that no matter what happens. He remembered that she made him laugh and made him smile, which he never did when he was in the Hyder residence, or with the factions. All he needed to do is to find the right combination of abilities in the sacred gear, and that is when he will rescue Nyx, he promised her, and he will achieve it. Issei looked at his targets. It was time to hurt his rival permanently, and he knew exactly to go after. He had a sinister grin. Welp, after this, there is no turning back. Issei spoke in a cold tone as he watched the skies. He would soon begin his assault on his new target, Lavinia. Chapter 2: The Fall of an Ice Mage. Issei decided to change his look using Illusion Make, a sacred gear that can transform into Malik, leaving no trace of his former self, as well as aura. One of the primary reasons he did this is due to the fact that Lavinia was a master magician. It would take her no less than a minute to figure out that her opponent is none other than the Red Dragon Emperor. He did not want to take a risk in such a situation. This was well known that Issei Haida was the Red Dragon Emperor, and Lavinia, if she manages to find out that Issei attacked her, everything he had done will go down for nothing. The red blade was the sacred gear he used that can easily cut through any magic without any problem. "Buddy, are you sure you want to take down Lavinia?" Drake asked in worry for his friend as he spoke. "Don't worry, this will hurt Vala the most. I am definitely going to leave a scar on her." Permanently, Issei spoke coldly. Spite was indicated in his voice. "But that is not the only reason you want to eliminate her, right?" Drake asked with a question. With Issei responded, "So you figured it out? Well, it is simple. Lavinia is one of the few that can use investigation magic. The magic can be a problem to my plans, and she is one of the few magicians that is considered a prodigy, on par with Augusta, who was the predecessor of the Walburga, the former wielder of Incinerate Anthem, which, if I am correct, is imprisoned in Underworld. As for the gear, it is in Gregori. She can use investigation magic to track Malik down when he attacks again, and I cannot risk the factions finding out who Malik is, at least not yet." Issei spoke in deep thought. Greg was surprised by this. Issei thought this through. It was like hitting two birds with one stone. He knew Issei was cunning, but he never expected to be this smart. However, he still had a few worries, which he voiced. "So how would you manage without using the boosted gear?" Drake asked, as Issei spoke. "Don't worry, I will be fine. I promise you that." Issei spoke. As he looked at Lavinia, if he was correct in his investigations, she was heading towards Kyoto, where her friend lives. "Right on the mark, we will begin our attack soon," Issei spoke as he attached a voice modulator that allowed him to mimic the voice of Malik. This would allow Lavinia to be unable to detect. Issei jumped into the fray as Lavinia was heading towards the Himejima residence to meet her friend Suzaku Himejima. "Such a shame, someone like you will fall tonight," Issei spoke in a metal and raspy voice, which was how Malik spoke to anyone he met. Meanwhile, Lavinia was walking to Suzaku's house. She wore a white sleeveless shirt, which had frills at the center, and a red tight pants. She also left her hair open and wore a headband. She wore red matching heels as she was walking towards the house. Lavinia was walking towards the house when all of a sudden the dimension changed around her. She was surprised by this, wondering who was responsible for this. She noticed the dimension change was similar to that of the Longinus dimension loss, but with the change being that she seemed to still be in Kyoto, as she could see the people walking around her, but they were ignoring her or were walking above or below her. She seemed to be in some sort of a parallel reality. She would not have even realized the dimension changed around her had she not noticed the weird anomalies around her. She looked around, then she saw him, the bald man, with a metal plating on his face. She immediately recognized him and narrowed her eyes. A neutral expression grew on her face. "I presume you must be Malik, right?" Lavinia asked in a cold tone as Issei laughed in response. It seemed that the disguise worked perfectly. "Good afternoon, Miss Renai." Well, let's just say today I have decided to eliminate you since you are quite a problem to me and my plans, Issei spoke with a sly grin. Courteous, I was not expecting you to be like that, considering you massacred many innocent lives. Lavinia spoke with venom laced in her voice. Oh, don't be like that. Besides, they were too easy to kill. And the best part is that the leaders getting their pride crushed, you should have seen their faces. Issei spoke with a haughty tone. He remembered how Malik told him that their faces were despair-ridden and furious. Some were even fearful. Lavinia was getting angry at Malik's words. She was definitely going to make him pay for his actions. She was radiating with mana as she spoke. You bastard, didn't you have any empathy for their wives and children, or other family members? Lavinia shouted in rage as Issei chuckled. That's not my problem. They were fools to defend their factions. Issei spoke while narrowing his eyes. Blind loyalty can be a problem. You must understand when it is right or when it is wrong. You really are a monster. Lavinia growled in rage. I am not even close for me to being a monster. Issei spoke with a smile as he continued. The only way to escape is by defeating me or I defeating you, but we all know what will happen. Issei spoke with a mocking tone. Don't underestimate me. I won't fall without a fight, and if possible, I will take you to the leaders, Lavinia declared. As I started to form where she was surrounding, she tried to intimidate Malik, who only chuckled. We will see about that, Lavinia Rennie, Issei responded in a mocking tone, ready to fight against the strongest ice princess. Lavinia knew that the man in front of her was not to be taken lightly, not because she knew if her prowess would not be enough, but she remembered how Mala humiliated Zeus and dared the king of Olympus to do something about it. She looked at her arms, not knowing whether she would even survive this fight, let alone win. But that did not mean that she was going to go down, not without a fight. Absolute demise, Lavinia muttered. Moments later, a 3-meter ice doll had formed right behind Lavinia. She looked at Malik dead in the eye as she tried to scan his movements, wondering what move he will pull next. Do you think that a huge ice block will intimidate me? Issei spoke with an arrogant tone as Lavinia looked at Issei with anger in her eyes, but she reeled it in. It won't do her any good. In response, she spoke. Then come and fight me if you think it is just a huge ice block, Malik. Lavinia shouted in response as Issei responded. As you wish, Ice Princess. Issei rushed with his ignited red blade as Lavinia muttered. Cool. Lavinia instantly froze Malik inside of her ice prison. Malik seemed to be frozen in time as she then spoke. You will be questioned for what you have done, Malik, and your fate will be decided by the factions. Lavinia spoke coldly while approaching Malik. However, unbeknownst to Lavinia, Issei was waiting for her to approach her closely. He was internally smirked, as he thought. All according to Kakaku, Issei thought as he witnessed Lavinia coming close to him. Once she was close enough, she raised her hand to bring her eyes to bring the frozen block in a dimension where she could. However, Issei waited. Where his hands could reach Lavinia, she saw Malik being transported to a separate dimension. Once that was done, he broke the ice and grabbed Lavinia by the throat. Did you really think a mere ice block would stop me? Issei taunted Lavinia, who was struggling to breathe, as she muttered weakly. How? I don't think I need to tell you my abilities, and besides, a magician doesn't reveal his tricks, doesn't he? Issei spoke in a mocking tone as he flung Lavinia to a distance. The ice mage managed to recover, seeing that her plan of subduing Malik failed to work. Lavinia managed to recover as she unleashed the storm of elemental spells. Several magic circles were brought out, with Issei recognizing them to be fire, electric, ice, dark and light magic. She then shouted. Take this. Lavinia released the magic as flames, lightning strikes, ice spears, squalls, arrows of light and finally balls of darkness were flung towards Issei. Before they could even hit him, Issei raised his hand, stopping every last one of them. Impossible. How can you stop all these spells? Lavinia shouted in disbelief and anger. She looked at Malik, as he responded. Like I said before, a magician never reveals his secret. Issei used telekinesis to redirect the spells back at Lavinia, who had great difficulty blocking the attack even with several barriers to protect herself. Once the dust settled, Lavinia was breathing heavily. She had several wounds on her body, due to what had happened with some of the spells striking her back. Amit, he blocked my attacks with one spell. I need to be careful, Lavinia thought with worry and fear. Not to mention, my mana was close to running out due to that attack. I seemed to have only one choice, Lavinia thought while looking at the doll, who awaited her wielder's instructions. She had no choice. The ground beneath her froze, with Issei taunting her while maintaining his balance on the new icy ground. What's the matter? Ran out of spells, Ice Princess Issei taunted her mockingly. As Lavinia glared at him, she then retorted. I am not done yet, balance break. Assoluto Argento Mondo, Lavinia chanted. Before anyone could react, the whole dimension changed, which creates a furious blizzard across an entire battlefield and innumerable giant sharp ice pillars able to turn the entire dimension into a world of ice at full strength. Shit. I never thought she would use Balance Breaker. I need to eliminate her quickly before revealing myself by using more of my powers. Issei thought with worry when he noticed Lavinia was missing. Now he was worried. He couldn't reveal more of his powers. He could create a sacred gear that could burn the ice around him, or simply use Drake's flames to burn everything around him, but that would expose his identity. However, before Issei could react, the ice he was standing on suddenly started to rise. What the Issei exclaimed in surprise as two additional ice blocks rushed towards him. In an attempt to crush him, Issei responded by blocking the ice pillars with his telekinesis. Issei crushed the pillars as a voice boomed across the dimension. What's the matter, Malik? Did you get ice across your feet? The voice was that of Lavinia's and she was mocking Malik. Issei was not happy with this. He was simply annoyed. Once inside her ice world, Lavinia is basically considered a sort of pseudo-goddess. He needed to find her to eliminate this world. You will never locate me, Lavinia mocked Malik. As he looked around, Issei responded to her. Don't you worry, you are somewhere in this world controlling the ice. Issei analyzed her sacred gear in order for him to identify its weaknesses. He knew that Lavinia is hidden somewhere trying to recover her mana while her sacred gear was controlling the ice. He knew exactly what to do. Issei took a deep breath as some more ice pillars and ice spikes charging at him. He closed his eyes and generated a telekinetic barrier protecting himself. Meanwhile, he concentrated his telekinetic power inside his body as he continued to focus for a while at a single point. As this was going on, the ice was constantly being bombarded on the barrier as Lavinia shouted, "Damn it! Get out of that prison, Malik, and face me." Malik only had a smile in response. He was done gathering the telekinetic energy needed. It was exhausting, but he had no choice. He had to do this if he needed to end this fight quickly. Issei spoke in a neutral tone as he opened his eyes. He had a small ball that looked like a drop-sized star in front of him. It was glowing with white light as he looked at the ball and absorbed it into his body. Issei started to levitate in the air, as he spoke only in a low tone or pulse. Issei suddenly curled himself into a ball and exploded. A stream of telekinetic energy was sent towards the entire dimension, destroying and disintegrating every single ice that was found. Issei then jumped on the ground, which was now made of regular concrete. The ice was completely destroyed, leaving a crippled doll, which was of absolute demise. Lavinia looked at horror. She tried to make her doll regenerate her ice. However, Issei exclaimed in response, "I won't let you." Issei rushed to Lavinia, and before she could react, Issei stabbed her in the chest with his red blade as she had a look of horror. No. That was Lavinia's last words before the dimension returned to the one Issei had created. She fell on her knees. Looking up, she saw Malachi's eyes. She looked in those yellow eyes. They were completely soulless. Or that was what Lavinia saw. She feared those eyes. It was like staring at death itself. Where is all that bravado you once had? Seems like the Ice Princess has fallen, to say taunted in a mocking tone. However, instead of being angry, Lavinia was scared. She was helpless. Her wound was too big, and she was out of mana. She could only be helpless in the eyes of her enemy. Her death seemed to be inevitable at this point. I am sorry, guys. I don't think I will come back from this one, Lavinia thought with sadness as a slight tear fell from her eyes. Issei only looked at her with complete apathy and coldness and thought, "You are right, you will not live through this." Issei removed his hand and started sucking out the life energy from her body. Another application of his telekinesis was that he can suck the life energy from a target's body. Her magic was already gone. She couldn't do anything about what was happening. Issei walked away as he spoke in a low tone. I hope this news finds you well, Valerie. Issei got out of there and restored the dimensions back to normal. He left as another person had come to check on Lavinia. Scene change. Kyoto. A few minutes earlier, Suzaku Himejima was a close friend of Lavinia's. She was worried that it has been a long time since she had not shown up. She called the others wondering where they were, but neither of them knew. Those that knew told her that she was coming to her place. She was described to look similar to her cousin Ikano, a beautiful, young, buxom woman who has long, flowing black hair and red eyes. She wore a red school uniform belonging to the school in Kyoto. Suzaku crossed the streets as she noticed a barrier earlier, which regular people failed to notice. She rushed worrying something was wrong while making sure that no one was watching her. When she got to the location, she kept her hands on her mouth in horror. She saw her friend unconscious with an injury aimed at her chest. Lavinia's heartbreaking scream was heard, and this was from Suzaku. She was crying endlessly while trying to wake her friend up. She was trying to find anything that could help her, but she failed to do so. Scene change. Issei watched the scene with his drones. He looked at Suzaku calling for others to help her in the situation. I seem to have underestimated her usage of her sacred gear. This was an unknown variable. Never thought she could hide herself. Issei spoke with a cold tone, but at the same time, he had a bit of anger. His underestimation of her could have potentially exposed him. Issei walked away and he recalled his drones. He teleported back to his room to avoid suspicion. Scene change. I'm Skip, brought to you by Chibi Usain meeting his counterparts. A few days later, Heidu residence, 11:30 a.m. A few days later, the factions got the news of Lavinia's condition, and they were in a critical state. If anything, many dreaded what Malik would do next, especially the Gregori, as they started to initiate even more defenses. Lavinia was in a comatose state due to magical exhaustion as well as her life force drain. The doctors estimated her that she only has a few years before she passes away. They estimated that she only had 5 years at most. This was a huge blow to Team/Dog, especially to Tobio and Suzaku, who cared for her like their very own. Suzaku blamed herself for not protecting her friend from Malik. But not even they could imagine who was affected the most, and that was Valerie Lucifer. She saw Lavinia as an older sister and mentor figure. She was shattered when she heard the news of Lavinia's condition and broke down. She couldn't handle that her sister would be gone in just 5 years. She was grief-stricken. However, there was one person who was unaffected by the news. That, of course, was Issei Heidu, who spoke. Damn it, I hate Grom. Always hides behind a wall and takes my brawler down. Issei got up and started walking outside the room. As he opened the door suddenly exploded due to a magic attack. But the Issei looked at the direction from where the attack came. However, before he could continue speaking, someone started to attack him. Issei dodged it as he saw his attacker to be Vali. What's your deal? Issei exclaimed with anger. However, Vali ignored him. She kept punching as he kept dodging the attacks. Stop attacking me. Issei spoke with an annoyed tone. If you had given us the information about Malik, Lavinia wouldn't be in this condition. Valerie shouted angrily while tears fell from her eyes. Issei kept dodging the attack while responding. Like I said, not my monkeys, not my circus, you are on your own in this fight. Issei kept dodging, as Vali shouted in response. You have a book that can recreate any sacred gear. You should use this power to save innocent lives. Valerie shouted in pure fury. With tears falling from her eyes, she did not stop punching, however. I have had enough. Issei grabbed both of Valerie's hands, shocking her as he flung her in the air. He then kept punching her with his lightning slayer gloves, with each blow dealing massive damage to her stomach. Valerie coughed up saliva at every punch as she was in midair. Issei responded by giving her a roundhouse kick to her face, sending her flying across the residence, knocking her out cold. People change for 2 reasons. Issei looked across. Most, minus Gaoru and Miki, were ready for a fight. They had unpleasant expressions. However, Most of them even had fear in their eyes. Issei then continued, "One is by change of heart or mind, and the main trigger is that all it needs is one bad experience to do so." Engvold listened to every word Issei said. She remembered his words that he will one day burn everything she held dear. But that is the problem. She barely had anyone. Her parents died a long time ago. Her father Lucius was also killed by the old Satan faction, and ever since then, she lived in Gregori. After that she was kidnapped, and well, the rest is history. She hated herself. She wished she could go in the past and make her realize her biggest mistake, but that is not going to happen. And then there was D, who was her king, physical and mental moral support. But it turned out he was a fraud. She hated D more than she hated herself for fooling her. But at the same time, she lost the only person that loved her. Now he was no longer going to help her, even from the shadows. She wanted to go back in time. But at the same time, she made a mental vow. She was going to let Issei accept her one day, no matter what happens. Is it perhaps you want to stay with your arms crossed and let us all suffer while watching from the sidelines? Azazel spoke in a serious tone. When you can do so much good while helping us. Azazel could not complete as Azazel stabbed him in the chest before the fallen angel could react. When he looked down, he saw fury in Azazel's eyes. Do you take me for a fucking weapon, Azazel? That you can use and discard whenever the hell you feel like it. I am not some sort of weapon or a sacred gear that you can use and throw away whenever you want. I know of your dislike towards me when you yourself fell because of your lust. Issei shouted, anger evident in his eyes. He removed the blade as it was revealed to be the mortis blade. Azazel coughed up blood. A simple stab should not be able to do this much damage. But Azazel tried to retort, however. Issei was not having any of that. I have been saying this time and time again, hand over next to me, and I will gladly give the information. But no, you believe that you are entitled to receive my help just because I know about the supernatural. Furthermore, I am the Red Dragon Emperor, so you think that I should help you guys. But no. I won't help you, not until I expect something in return. Issei declared as he released Azazel, who clutched his wound while gritting his teeth. He glared at Issei. He wanted to throw a light spear, but he does not know what he will do to him. If he attacks him, he might meet the same fate as Valerie. It is just that you don't want to help with that power of yours. Dai spoke in a cold tone towards his brother. Engvold glared at Dai for saying that, who smirked in response. Indeed, I don't desire to do so. Issei started to head out as Mickey and Guru opened their mouths. We did not raise a monster. You should help others, Issei. That was the son we raised. Issei started laughing, shocking and angering both of his parents. He calmed down for a while. Yes. I am a monster, and you know what monsters do? They do this. Issei dashed towards Azazel and Valerie, each of his hands grabbing them by their necks as he started to choke them. Azazel struggled to free himself from Issei's grip. He tried to bring out a light spear, but Issei increased the force of hand, forcing to try to make himself release from the grip. This is what a monster will do. I will kill these two right here and right now. Issei's words made many horrified on what he will do next as Ike and Riaz shouted, Let them go, brother. Issei, hi dude. You better let go or else I will call my big brother. Issei turned his attention to them and activated a sacred gear that can disrupt all communications. He called it the short circuit. No. Go ahead. I dare you two to do something about this. It won't take me a minute to kill these two right away. Issei taunted in a mocking tone as Riaz tried to communicate to her brother, but was horrified when she couldn't reach him as Issei spoke. The person you are trying to reach is currently busy. Issei spoke with a mocking tone. Oh, it seems like your older brother doesn't have time for you. Riot and Issei spoke with a fake sadness. Riaz looked at him in fear. She was shivering, almost on the verge of passing out due to fear. She was helpless. Issei can kill them and leave no trace of them. Same went for Riaz's peerage. They were all afraid. Issei can take her down, and her brother won't even realize it until it is too late. Ike, you were saying to release them, but you can't do anything to stop me, can you? Issei spoke with a taunt. After all, you are nothing but all bark, but no bite, such a shame. Ike gritted her teeth with fury. While D was equally angry, however, he was fearful on what Issei will do next. Attack me again, and I will join Malik myself. Issei's words made many horrified as he continued, I can destroy Malik like an ant if I wanted to, and I am your last and only hope in defeating him. I will ask him to join, and I will start destroying the factions myself alongside him. Just think of your only last hope turning into your worst enemy. Just imagine what can happen, Issei declared with an evil and sinister grin. Issei's words made many fear him even more. Some of the weaker-willed, including his parents, passed out due to fear. He then dropped Azazel and Valerie. As Azazel tried to catch his breath, he then left the room as he was not interested in dealing with them. Issei walked away. Far from them, many tried to help Valerie. They were happy that she was breathing, with Azazel speaking in a serious tone after catching his breath. We need to tell this to your brother that Issei won't hesitate to become our enemy if we attack him, but first we need to get Vali to somewhere safe. She needs treatment. Many nodded as they started to get to work. Aika and Day helped their parents, with Day vowing to one day take his power and torture him for all eternity. Scene change. Rooftop, Haiti residence, 2 a.m. Issei was sipping a bottle of Diet Coke. As he looked on in anger, he enjoyed their fears in their hearts as he was thinking on his next plan of attack. Even though Malik was strong enough to take on a single faction, multiple factions attacking together could overwhelm him. Plus, Issei knew that now the security would be tightened due to the attack on Lavinia. It will be harder for him to attack the factions. Issei decided to change tactics. He needed more information on the security systems of each of the factions. Then there was the Greek and Hindu factions, two of the biggest threats he will have to deal with. He barely had any information on the Hindu faction. Only their names. He needed to collect information on the Hindu faction. Although not as strong as Great Red or Office, Issei knew that Shiva, Brahma and Vishnu were forces to be reckoned with. Their strength surpassed Circeus from a long mile. And then there is several other gods like Indra, who is as strong as Circeus. As for the Greek faction, he needed to deal with Zeus and Poseidon, although they aren't as strong as Hades, who could beat them in a long mile. They were still pretty strong, he needn't underestimate them. And finally, the Norse faction, who had Thor, Odin and Vidar, three people who could give a run for his money. Those were the people, so far he found out, that he needed to be careful of, aside from Sergius, Ajuka, and several others. Hey Dreg? Issei asked his best friend with the boosted gear, speaking up. You better give me a good reason. You ruined my sleep. I was finally gonna get laid. Dreg spoke while comically crying as Issei's sweat dropped. He gave his friend a moment, and then spoke. I was wondering that since our fight is tougher, how are we going to gather information? Issei asked. Well, you could infiltrate the factions or you can have others do the job for you now. Let me go to sleep. Drake spoke, not caring for the factions anymore. He hardly could feel anything for them, given how much they looked down upon his best friend. Issei thought of the proposal. He then spoke in response. I see, so they will act as our eyes and ears. Not bad, thanks Drake. Issei praised Drake, who only dozed off in response. The infiltrators. They were hucking ring, ring, ring. An unknown voice came. He then sensed his phone vibrate as he looked at the caller ID and started to sweat. The high Issei spoke, slightly nervous, as a woman's voice came from the speaker. Issei, where have you been? You haven't contacted me and my husband since a long time. The woman exclaimed with faint sadness. I am so sorry, I just had a lot of work to do. Issei spoke, trying to explain himself to the woman as the woman spoke. Well, I am happy that you finally decided to take some time off from your busy schedule. The woman spoke with a slight happiness tone. I know, I really am sorry. Issei spoke with slight sadness. It almost felt like Issei cared for this person. Either way, when are you coming to visit us? The woman asked. As Issei responded, I can come right away if you want me to. Issei spoke with a beaming smile. That's good. I would definitely prepare your feast, young man. The woman beamed with happiness. Issei responded, I am looking forward to that. The woman then asked, So for long you will stay here? The woman asked, A week, and besides, my family doesn't care if I am even away for a year. Issei spoke as the woman responded with an assuring tone. But we do, both me and my husband do, so you can come here whenever you can. I will, Issei spoke with a genuine smile, a smile that hasn't been seen for a long time. Well, then see you at your place, Persephone. Persephone greeted cheerfully as she disconnected the call. Issei felt at ease. He headed back inside to pack, drag, then spoke in a cheerful tone. It feels nice to hear from her, partner. Yeah, well, let's not keep her waiting and head to prepare ourselves. I guess it is nice of you to have that smile of yours. Drake spoke in a cheerful as he deactivated the gear. He headed to his room and packed his stuff. He was about to head out when Where are you going? A voice spoke with a hint of fear came from outside his door. Issei turned to who it was and narrowed his eyes. It was Asia that called him. Where I go is none of your concern. You can leave if you want to, Issei spoke with spite. He was annoyed that she ruined such a good mood of his. Issei, wait, your mom Asia could not complete as Issei had already left to the realm of the undead. Asia was left flabbergasted, she only could tell everyone that Issei has left. She knew that Issei will not be back for a while. Nobody knew where he was going on, nobody but Issei and Drake. Issei watched as he was being teleported to the realm of the dead, as he looked across and was happy to visit Persephone and Hades once again. Issei was excited to see them again. I can't wait to see what they have in store for me. Chapter 3. Roses of the Underworld. I do residence. 9 p.m. He did what? Guru asked in surprise. He had heard Asia tell him about him leaving the house with 2 duffel bags. He was going somewhere. He did not tell me where, and he just left believing that we don't deserve to know. Asia spoke in a neutral tone. I see. Guru spoke in understanding. It is good that he is gone. He should stay far away. Rias spoke with utter fear while remembering how helpless she was when he put Azazel and Valerie, and defeated them with ease. Even most of her peerage agreed to what Rias had spoken. Akindo remembered the hallucinations Issei put her through when she attacked him in his room for insulting her Hinata. Despite her being a robot, she shivered remembering what had happened. Even those from D's peerage like Kaiza, Ravel, Rojuis, Sanzanovia were fearful of what he is capable of. Valitine was not present as she was being taken care of in the underworld due to her injuries. Even D himself was fearful. Ria's words were not wrong. However, Aika, despite her fear, she was angry at what AC had done as Mickey spoke. Either way, let's have our dinner. There is nothing we can do, Mickey's voice was stern. She was surprised by how cold and brutal his egg was as they all start to eat in silence. The house has not been the same ever since Akino's change in nature. After eating, they all left to head back to their rooms as Dai once again spoke to Engvold, who just ignored him again. Why is she ignoring me? Dai muttered in confusion. He looked at the other girls, however, they were as clueless as Dai was. He hoped that Engvold did not come to know about the truth, otherwise, everything he has done will crumble to dust. It is only a matter of time before your empire that you have created by your lies falls to the ground. Crom thought he was thinking of going to Issei if he ever got the chance, but unfortunately, he did not know whether this would ever happen. I did not know why, but he felt a chill. Something was going to happen to him in the future. River of Styx, Hades Domain, 9:30 p.m. Issei was standing on the boat. The river person was taking him to as the boat person, who was Sharon, stopped. Here Issei removed a gold coin from the Greek era. This was a coin meant for the payment, however, Sharon refused it. That won't be necessary, young man. After all, Lady Persephone has personally asked you to visit her. Sharon spoke with a smile, however, this was not noticed by Issei due to his dark robe. No, I insist. I am a traveler after all. Right? Issei insisted him to take the coin. Sighing, Sharon reluctantly accepted the coin. He then wished to say safe travels as he walked towards the underworld throne room of Hades. It was a huge mansion, which was almost akin to a model house. Issei looked at the place with a smile as he remembered that a lot of changes had happened to Hades's domain ever since Persephone came back to his life. It had become much more cheerful and much more green in nature, as Persephone was literally the light of Hades's life. Rubbing head to not remember her past, he walked inside. The house was warm, Its interior was well decorated with different types of flowers. There he sensed an aroma, as he presumed to be home-cooked meals. He walked inside, where he saw a beautiful young woman in her 20s with flawless skin and a voluptuous body. She has long dark brown hair and stormy blue eyes, which are described as the color of the sky during a thunderstorm. She is said to have a calm and serene aura. She wears a noble black and red dress, decorated with beautiful roses and black fishnet stocking. She wears designer high heels shoes. She also wears a crown formed from roses and a golden necklace with a bright red jewel attached to it. However, she currently wore an apron. Persephone! Issei happily exclaimed. Persephone turned around to see Issei as she beamed in happiness, seeing him after a very long time. Issei-chan! Persephone happily exclaimed in return as the goddess of the underworld and fertility immediately brought him into a loving embrace as they both hugged for a while. Issei melted into the hug. It took him a while to realize that the goddess was next to him. Not that he minded, given that he felt warm. He hasn't felt this for a long time. And he did not want to let go. He did eventually let her go as Persephone put her hand on Issei's shoulders and wrapped her around him. Her actions felt motherly to Issei, asking, "How have you been?" Persephone asked with happiness. "I am not going to lie. My life has been getting better since the past 2 days," Issei responded with a smile. "That's good." Persephone beamed in response. She still remembered how sad Issei was when the last time he was here. She then remembered how he was the last time she had met him, and that was 1 year 3 months ago. Flashback begins. Scene change. "It's okay, Issei-chan, it's gonna okay." Persephone spoke while rubbing Issei's back. She was there for him when an incident happened. "How can it be okay, Persephone? She chose that damn die over me again. Nobody believes that I saved her from Nyx. And now, even she thinks that I am a liar," Issei spoke while crying. Persephone was sad on the outside, but in reality, she was furious, especially towards Dee for doing this to him. Hades was also next to him as he spoke. "I have no words to say, but there is nothing you can do. You have no proof to prove yourself innocent. It's time you let go." Hades's voice was sad. Like Persephone, he hated what had happened to Issei. His heart was broken. It reminded him of what happened to Persephone. "But I can't, my heart still loves her. And it pains me to see her with Dai." Issei spoke with utter sadness. He sniffled as Hades spoke. "I think you should rest in the room, you should sleep for now." Issei looked at him and nodded. He just walked away, showing barely any emotions. Persephone did not want him go. Her maternal instincts were causing her to rush to him. Hades stopped her as she protested. "Darling, he needs me. I know, I know, but his heart is broken. We can't do anything about it. I can't believe his younger brother would do this to him." Again, Hades spoke with sadness and ending with a growl. "Honestly, how can he do this? Even Zeus is not like that. Why can't he let his brother live in peace? Seriously, once he even threads in your realm, I will make sure to torture him." Persephone spoke with sheer spite and a cold tone as Hades nods in agreement to her request. Both of them could only watch as Issei went inside the room he was given to them. Persephone came in much later only to see Issei crying in his sleep. Her heart clenched as she embraced him that night to show that he is not alone. Flashback ends. Scene change. Persephone Issei called her as she was in her trance. "AI's chance, sorry, just was remembering something." Persephone spoke with a wry smile while rubbing her head. She then remembered. "All right. Darling doesn't know you are visiting." "Wait. Hades doesn't know I am here?" Issei asked as Persephone shook her head and responded, "Nope, I kept it a surprise. The truth is that he has been overworked by paperwork, so I thought that I could surprise him." "I hope you don't mind." Persephone spoke while looking away with slight sadness as Issei denied it, and responded, "No, I understand. I would love to meet him." Persephone beams at this and responds, "Great, then let's go. We can eat the food later." Persephone spoke with a smile as she pulled Issei towards Hades' study room. Scene change. A man was sitting on the desk. This was Hades, in his human form. He took form of a tall and handsome man with a specially designed eye patch on his right eye and long, stylish silver hair that spikes up at various spots on his head. He's shown with a leaf-like pattern tattooed across his forehead, a spiked choker necklace lined, and a bead-like earring on his left ear with many smaller piercings. His attire is shown to be quite formal and extravagant, with a collar that spans all the way to his upper chest and badges decorated on the left and right side of his coat. Finally, he wears long white jeans and a pair of shoes filled with square patterns. Hades was working in his study room trying to complete his paperwork. This was all thanks to Zeus dumping several of his paperwork. The reason was that this was his punishment due to him helping the Cows Brigade. Hook Zeus and this paperwork. Can't believe I am made to do this. Hades exclaimed angrily while smashing the desk. Mountains of paperwork was stashed on the sides of Hades's desk. He still had to fill up 1,000 more of these. He wished he could have his Grim Reapers help him, but they were too busy handling the rest of the underworld. I hate my life. Hades fell on his desk with his head down, crying, hoping that someone could save him from this hell. Hades then realized why should he do Zeus's work. It was not his domain. His domain was the underworld. He had a smirk on his face. It was time to play the evil god. Using a small fire magic, he immediately burned the stack of papers that belonged to Zeus. He left no trace of the paper as every single paper burned. He did put a protective barrier on his stack of papers before. Let's see what happens next. Zeus Hades had a sinister smirk on his face. However, as he watched the paper burn, somebody knocked on the door. Darling, someone is here to see you. Persephone's voice was heard as Hades was removing the flames as soon as possible. He gritted his teeth in annoyance as the flames were not easy to remove. Wait, I am just doing stuff. Hades exclaimed, worried that his wife would get angry if she finds out once the flames died off. He breathed a sigh of relief. He opens the door as he is surprised to see who it is. Look who is here to visit, Persephone exclaimed happily, as Hades gave a hearty smile. I'll be surprised, how have you been, Issei? Hades exclaimed happily, as he brought Issei in a bear-crushing hug. However, Issei was unaffected by the god of the underworld strength. He can take a whole lot of strength. After splitting up, Issei spoke. In better, speaking of which were Armilano and Macaria, Issei asked, remembering Hades and Persephone talking about their daughters the last time he had visited. To them, we decided to enroll them in a college of the human world. I believed it would be best to learn some human culture and customs. Hades spoke with a smile as he remembered convincing his daughters to spend a few years. Which one? Issei asked in interest. We were planning to send them to Core Academy at first since you were there, and they could keep you company. But then we realized that your bastard of your brother would try to flirt with them, so they are studying in Stafford University in England. Hades spoke with a smile, as Issei sighed in relief. Persephone vividly remembered that they were close to making a mistake, and they were happy that they sent them to England and made all the necessary arrangements so that the angel faction doesn't bother them. Not that they would be able to do much to his daughters, anyways, since they are well versed with Greek magic. That's good. Otherwise, they may have been charmed by Dionysus spoke with fear as Hades spoke in an assuring tone. I swear on the river Styx, I won't let that bastard even come close to my girls, Hades declared. He will not let anyone he doesn't trust near his daughters. Anyways, enough about that. The food is getting cold. Let's go and eat. Persephone spoke, trying to change the subject, to which both men nodded and headed towards the dining table. Scene change. Inner table, Hades's domain, 10:45 p.m. And after that, I told to Zeus's face, not my monkeys, not my circus essay, narrated the time when he headed to the faction meetings with Hades laughing in agreement. Even Persephone cracked open a smile. To say that to Zeus's face requires some real balls. You really are something, Hades spoke while calming his laughter. Barely expected me to help them, even after admonishing and humiliating me. They really think I would accept that? Issei spoke in a neutral tone as Persephone shook her head sideways. Entitlement at its finest. Then again, I expected this from Zeus. Persephone spoke in a disappointed tone. Although I did not expect people like Circeus, Shiva, or even Aiden, honestly, I feel like power corrupts people. Hades sighs in response. And again, power corrupts. I was also corrupted by the desire to gain more power, especially after you were killed. Hades spoke with a grim tone as Persephone kept her hand on Zeus's and spoke with an assuring tone. I won't go anywhere, darling. I won't leave you ever again. Persephone spoke with a solemn smile. She knew how much her death affected Hades. Hades was all alone for centuries after the death of his wife. By the hands of a Longinus user, he managed to torture the hero. But after that, he lost himself to darkness and became a being that hated devils, angels and fallen angels, holding them responsible for the death of his wife. His hatred even reached any Longinus user as well. He gave up his human form and became the skeleton god many familiarized for a very long time. Issei was no exception to his hatred, as he often looked down upon the boy when he first met him during the raiding game between Riaz and Sekiruuyetei, back when he was still a PAW and low-class devil in Riaz's peerage. Issei was just there as a spectator, as he never fought or met Riaz's cousin in his fight. He did visit him later on, as he was the one who gave the Cow's Brigade, Samuel's poison, only for him to be greeted by the angry god who demanded his presence in his domain. A fight nearly broke out, but Issei requested peace as he did not want to fight him. He always wondered why the god looked down upon Longinus wielders and the races from the three factions. He initially never told him, but after pestering, he relented and told him about Persephone. He told everything. Issei understood his pain, and by that time he had found the book of conceptual creations. He decided to help him. Hades called it a bluff, believing that his wife's soul is long gone. However, he managed to clone Holy Grail, since he was aware of RageRevan unsealing the seal of the biblical god. He was going to clone all sacred gears that the biblical god had used to seal the beast, and make a seal that would be strong enough to permanently seal Trihixa in an event he had been released. It turns out, once he removed the limiters on each sacred gear, he only needed to use 3, since no matter what he does, he was never able to recreate the true Longinus perfectly. That was the only sacred gear that he failed to recreate, no matter how much he tried, since he was too focused on creating the seal. The 3 sacred gears were the Holy Grail Sephiroth Grail, the Holy Cross Incinerate Anthem, and finally the Holy Nail Alphika Tyrant. The third one was still not found by the factions yet. He then used the Holy Grail to find where her soul was. It turns out all those souls that have been destroyed end up in an alternate dimension, as Issei calls it, purgatory, where there is no escape. It is like an empty void where the soul can do whatever they wanted. It is like a whole different world to anyone that does come here. That is why the original Holy Grail wielded by Valerie Teeps failed to resurrect those souls that have been destroyed. But nothing was impossible for this version of Holy Grail, since due to its removal of its limitations, the Holy Grail can enter into dimensions like these and bring out souls trapped in this dimension. He also encountered Rainer and her group, whom he promptly ignored. His main focus was to reach Persephone, and he found her. He found her sitting on the ground and closing her head in her knees, curling up in a ball and crying. She has been stuck here for centuries, if not millennia. She can never meet her love. When she saw Eyes being her hope, she was reluctant at first, but Eyes convinced her, bring her back in the arms of her lover, Hades. Issei describes purgatory to be the true definition of afterlife, or more accurately hell, primarily because you can never be revived, especially after your soul gets destroyed. There is no escape once you reach here, even from hell. One can escape using the original Holy Grail. That was how the Cow's Brigade was able to revive beings like Grendel, Ladin, and several other evil dragons that were apparently slain. Furthermore, Issei had to leave from that dimension fast, as his soul was being torn apart in the real world, and it was being sucked in this dimension. Whoever made this made sure that even if you managed to get in, there will be no way for you to get out. He made it out before any permanent damage could be done to Issei's soul. After pulling her out of purgatory, Issei contained her soul in the Grail. Hades was more than ecstatic to meet his love again, although they needed a body. This was not a problem, since Hades somehow managed to preserve her body as a memory for the unjust death that happened to her, and all Issei had to do was transfer her soul. It took a while for Persephone to wake up and adjust to her life inside of her old body that was not moved for centuries, but she did. However, she learned of Hades' actions, and needless to say, she was not happy. She was furious, and she made sure to teach Hades a lesson that he will never forget. After dealing with his wife's wrath, he begged for forgiveness, which was surprising. She made sure that Hades changed for good, which he did. On his own accord, Issei was surprised to see a completely different side of Hades, but he was happy for them. Issei still remembered Hades' screams of fear and pleas of mercy. He pitied the god. Both Persephone and Hades were eternally grateful to Issei, as Persephone finally met her daughters after a very long time, and the family was now a happy family. They asked Issei to visit, which he did often and whenever he could. Over time, both Persephone and Hades started to like him even more, and Issei also became close to them. They became very important to his life, so much so, he started to share his secrets to them and trusted them more than his biological family and his friends. Persephone remembered everything. She held her hand. As Hades looked at her with a solemn smile, Issei risked his own soul to rescue hers, and he was not going to lose her again. Both fell into their own pink world. Issei decided to eat his food in silence. However, the sound of crockery managed to snap them out of their pink world. No, carry on, don't mind me, Issei spoke with a smile, as steam came from Persephone's ears, and Hades looked away embarrassed. Both were in a blushing mess. Speaking of which, how is Nyx doing? Issei asked with concern, to which both the god and the goddess smile at each other and tease him. So the lover boy has decided to go to his girl, Persephone spoke with a teasing smile, which caused Issei to stutter and blush. Well, Issei stammered as Persephone chuckled. Oh, don't worry, you can visit her tomorrow. Persephone spoke with a smile. And even she was demanding, where have you been? You know I have told my guards that you can visit her whenever you want, right? Hades spoke with a smile. He was aware of Issei's love for the primordial goddess. Even they were surprised as they knew of his constant visits, but they chose to ignore it. Yeah, but you know I have been busy, right? Issei spoke while rubbing his tone with both of the gods being well aware of Issei's plans and actions. Yeah, you and Malik doing all those stuff, but Issei, you know we are worried. Persephone spoke with a tone of concern as Issei responded. You know I would be fine, right? But even then at least don't do anything at night, Issei. Persephone requested Issei, as Issei sighed and spoke. Alright, only for you, and even I am tired as well, Issei spoke with a sigh. Persephone and Hades agreed in happiness, as they all started to discuss on their future plans to an outside viewer. This seemed like a normal family dinner. Aside from two people heading to college, that is, scene change. I'm Skip. I do residence, 11 p.m. The factions have been starting to suspect that Dai may not be the hero that they assumed him to be. However, many still believe Dai to be their true hero and savior. I told you that you will suffer the consequences of your actions, Crom spoke as he manifested from the gauntlets. Damn it, how can he get this powerful? Dee spoke in a frustrated tone, not happy hearing what Crom had spoke, as the evil dragon responded, betrayed himself, unlike your sorry non-existent ass that only took credit for the work he did. After all, you and I both know that he was the one to seal the beast of Apocalypse Trahixa when you and Valerie failed to do so. Crom declared in a mocking tone while putting an emphasis on he and you. I gritted his teeth in response as he shouted while punching a nearby wall. Damn it, I should have eliminated him before he could have been this strong. Crom only laughed in response, angering him even further. What's so funny, Crom? The fact that you can think of eliminating him even after he humiliated you in front of your lackeys, even before refusing to help you, is the funny part. My stupid host Crom spoke in a mocking tone before cutting off the connection, leaving a frustrated and screaming Dai. However, he was being watched by Engvold, who only nodded her head sideways as she spoke in disappointment in herself. And to think I loved you, you really are a scum, aren't you, Dai? Engvold spoke coldly as she walked away to head to her room to sleep. Scene change. Engvold's nightmare, 12 a.m. Engvold was in a dark void in her Qua Academy uniform as she looked on asking, Where am I? Suddenly, Graphia appears in front of her as Engvold was surprised to see her here. Graphia, what are you doing here? Engvold asked in surprise as she was met with a loving smile as she responded, Don't you know? Know what exactly? Engvold spoke with confusion. Well, you are getting married to Dai. Engvold, Graphia spoke with a smile as all of a sudden Engvold's clothing changed into a purple gown. She had a look of horror as she shouted, "No! No! No! This cannot be happening!" Engvold shouted, as Gracia was confused with her asking, "What do you mean? This is what you always wanted." Graphia spoke while her smile as she fades away, leaving a despair at Engvold. The scene then changes to Dai wearing a wedding tuxedo. Engvold was horrified on the inside, however. Her body was smiling with her thinking, "No. No, please be a nightmare." Engvold thought, "I am so happy that this day has come, my love." Engvold, I spoke with a smile, emanating happiness. Engvold was smiling on the outside, but she was screaming on the inside. She was unable to move or escape. "God, please, if you are listening, please help me." Engvold thought, not caring for the headache that she would receive when she chanted the name. However, nobody came as she saw Issei's parents, his sister, and the rest of her friends, all clapping in joy for what had happened. Her body was then pulled towards Dai as they both kissed. Although Engvold's expression was happy on the outside, she was crying. She couldn't help but remain as her body was beyond her control. She was unable to change her fate. The scene once again changes, this time, however. Engvold was wearing her gown that she had worn during her time when she first met Dee. However, there were two changes. One was that there was an additional Engvold who wore something identical, who wore the same clothing, smiling at her condition, and two, she noticed that her hand had an engagement ring and a mark of a dragon. This meant only one thing, that she was now married to Dai. She couldn't help but weep at her fate, now that she is stuck with a liar, as her body can now show expressions. However, she was chained, she was unable to move, but only watches what happened next. But what surprised her next was that Issei showed up with Issei calling her. Engvold. "Listen," Issei tried to speak, but Engvold, the one that was free, slapped him in response. Issei rubbed his cheek as she spoke coldly. "I told you to address me as sister-in-law or Lady Leviathan, and two, I told you not to bother me. I am already married, so I will not go out with you." Engvold, nightmare, responded as Issei clenched his fist in anger, responding, "You know what? Screw you, you can do whatever the hell you feel like. After all, the apple does not fall far from the tree. You are no better than your ancestor, Leviathan, almost as bad as my brother Dai." Issei spoke with pure fury and hate in his voice, with Engvold nightmare, only scoffing in return. "Yeah, I don't need to listen to you, you low-class being and deceiver." Engvold nightmare spoke coldly while turning away. "No. Don't listen to her, Issei. You are my hero, not Dai." Engvold shouted, however, her voice was unheard. The nightmare version then saw Issei walking away as an evil smirk grew on her face. She turned her attention to her real self and spoke. "You see, all of this is happening because of you turning away the real hero. Now you will stay with the one who only saw you as an object." Engvold, nightmare, spoke with a tone full of mockery while the real Engvold was horrified. "No, this can't be happening." Engvold spoke with fear and guilt. "It is, and I am afraid you can do nothing but live your life with a man who never loved you." Engvold nightmare spoke while cackling as the other Engvold could only weep and wallow herself in despair. Engvold nightmare then spoke, "I wonder what would have happened if you actually heard us say out even once." After that, Engvold nightmare disappears before everything changes back to normal. Scene change. Engvold's room, 2:30 a.m. Engvold shouted. As she woke up from her dream, sweat was dripping from her face. She looked to see that it was all just a nightmare, but to her, it felt real. "If only I could have realized the truth, maybe things would have been different." Engvold spoke while completely grief-stricken. She remembered a part of Issei's words. "I do not care for you, my dear Engvold. I want you to live because I want you to see the consequences of your actions. I can't allow you to fall asleep now, can I? That will be no fun now, right, Lady Enfield? That would be mercy. And I won't let that happen." She decided to have some water when she noticed her bottle empty. She decided to leave while remembering Issei's utter refusal to help the factions. She didn't blame him, why should she? If anything, him not helping them justifies his actions. Issei was not affiliated with any faction, he was not a devil, He was not affiliated with the Church of Vatican or a reincarnated angel, or even the Gregori's human teams like /Dog. So he has no reason to help the three factions. Furthermore, they admonished and looked down upon him just because of him either being a pervert or weakling. There should be no reason to help them since all they think of him was a tool that they can use and discard. So you have finally realized the truth. I never expected him to reveal it to you. Engvold was startled by the voice as she exclaimed, "Beep, relax, it's me." The voice belonged to that of a female. Engvold turned around to see a cute young girl with long black hair down to her hips and black eyes. Her ears differ from a normal human's as they have pointed tips, although her long black hair makes this feature difficult to notice. Her dark gray eyes have reptilian slitted pupils. Office Engvold spoke with surprise. "Indeed, it's me." "So your eyes have been opened, hasn't it?" Office spoke with an emotionless tone, while Engvold looked down in shame. Who Hedu really is, a fraud, an imposter, a little boy who is an attention seeker for something he didn't do. Office spoke while munching on a Cadbury's chocolate. "Yes, I saw the cruel truth of who saved me," Engvold responded as Office shook her head. "But the question remains, what truth did you see?" Office asked, which surprised Engvold. "I don't understand," Engvold asked, confused. "Is there something else I need to know?" "I know that Issei protected someone as stupid as me." "I understand," Office spoke while nodding. "Let's just say that I was not the only one who had a hand in ruining his reputation." Engvold widened her eyes as he spoke. "But who would do this?" Engvold asked with sadness and confusion as Office responded. "I will tell you another time. And besides, I will tell you a truth, the real truth of Malik. And why is he destroying the factions?" Engvold was surprised by this. "Wait, you can help us find who Malik really is?" Engvold spoke as Office responded. "Just you, the factions and the others have lost my trust a long time ago." Office spoke in an emotionless tone, yet it seemed to be cold, and Great Red will be the one to show you this. He has agreed to show you this. Meet me in 5 days, at the fountain. "But why are you helping me?" Engvold asked in a sad tone. "He was my first friend, and he showed me how to understand feelings." Often spoke with a smile, despite her tone being emotionless. Many of us underestimated him because of the lies shown by the factions or his appearance, or his power. But despite this, he still helped them time after time. But remember this, word of our conversation must stay between us. Office spoke as Engvold put her head down in shame and nodding. I think I should take my water and go to sleep." Often nodded at Engvold's words and left. However, unbeknownst to her, she left one of her snake underneath her shadow, which would take down Engvold if she ever reveals what happened that night. "I hope you listen to me," Office spoke while shaking her head. As she finished her chocolate, she looked at it, and missed sitting on Issei's lap. "Please come back, Issei," Office muttered in request. The Office headed to the fridge to take another Cadbury's chocolate. She wanted to try Diet Coke. However, understanding that this was one of his favorite, she did not touch the drink. Unbeknownst to both of them, someone else was watching their conversation. It was Valerie who had teleported to the Hayato residence. She had bandages all over her body to cover up the blisters as well as the barrage of punches she had received courtesy of Issei. "You are doing a mistake, Valerie. Let's see how you react to the cruel truth," Albion warned her host, to which Vali mentally retorted, "I don't care. I am only interested in seeing the weakness of Malik and who he really is. He hurt the people close to me," Vali declared mentally as Albion could only do one thing before cutting of the connection. Scene change. I'm Skip, brought to you by Chibi Issei, irritating Chibi Valerie with his trumpet skills. 2 days later, Hades' domain, 7:30 a.m. Issei had woken up from his bed, Hades and Persephone, and reserved this room for Issei. He then spoke, "I have never felt a proper sleep. Whenever I come here, I know that there will be people that care for me." Issei felt happiness and warmth. However, he felt sad that he couldn't stay here for long, else the factions would suspect him. He cannot reveal anything until the time is right. "Good morning to you too," partner Drake greeted him, to which Issei returned the greeting. "So what plan do we have for today?" Drake asked in curiosity, to which Issei responded, Well, we should go after our first victim and make him into our informant, and I have 3 candidates in mind. Issei spoke with a smile. Our first victim will be Elizabeth Lyons, who is the heart 3 of Seraph Gabriel. But how do you plan on bringing her to your side? Drake asked, to which Issei manifested the iron crown of Lombardy, which consists of a circlet of gold and jewels, fitted around a central silver band. Say hello to Elpheka Tyrant, also considered the 4th holy relic, said be made of iron beaten out of the holy nails that were embedded in the true cross when Jesus was crucified. Issei declared with a smile. As Drake was surprised, he wondered how was it possible that there could be 4 holy relics. But how is this possible? Drake asked in wonder. Issei answered, it turns out the book knew that there are more than 3 holy relics, and the biblical God only used 3 of them to seal the beast, the Holy Spear, the Holy Grail, and the Holy Cross. But those 3 were not the only holy relics. There are some more that the book has informed me about, and all of them are related to Christ. One of them is the crown of thorns, which allows the said user to see in the future it was the crown Christ himself had worn. Another is the shroud of Turin, which can change into any gender the user desires to, and it is the same cloth that was used to wrap around Christ after his crucifixion. Issei explained. As Drake was surprised by the inside of his host, he then asked, so anything related to Christ can potentially turn into a long nose? Yes, one of them being the holy nail. Issei completed Drake's wordings, as he then asked his final question. I see, but do the factions know about this? Drake asked, as Issei shook his head and responded. So far, they only know about the holy relics. They don't know that the thing has manifested into an additional Longinus, and so far, they only assume that there are 3 Longinus based on holy relics. But there could be so much more, and we still have to explore this. Issei answered Drake's question. And using this, we can rewrite the memories and personality of a target. The old one will be gone, and we can choose what memories we can insert into our target. It uses nails made of holy energy to attack a target, and we can use it to completely control a target, even make them join on our own accord. Issei ended the statement, as Drake asked, but how will we infiltrate the heaven system? Drake was thinking, as Issei responded, I have the halo that Griselda and Vasco had given me when I visited heaven to see the interdimensional room that Michael had created for my brother, and Irina. Issei spoke while remembering some of his past with his childhood or former childhood friend. I will never be with a pervert like you. You aren't the childhood friend that I grew up with, Issei. You would think that I liked you, and yes, I did, but when you were not a pervert, and besides Dai is a better brother than you, he is nice, has a gentleman attitude, and is a better person overall than you. Goodbye, I say. You should change yourself, or you will be all alone. Irina spoke coldly and had hate in her voice which reverberated across his mind. This line was something he will remember for his life. Issei clenched his fist remembering it. Dai wasn't the only one that spread rumors. His number 1 mistress Riaz also had a hand in it. Like everyone else, she was manipulated by his lies and decided to tell it to everyone in the supernatural world. He couldn't go anywhere without being talked behind the back or be humiliated. He was going to make her pay. He was going to make them all pay. Partner Drake spoke with worry. Right, sorry, Issei apologized. He shouldn't fall into his anger. He should channel it against his enemies at the right time. Issei then saw his phone ring. It was a message, and this was from Malik. He had enchanted his phone to prevent hacking in case it is a Juk or Azazel trying to tap into his phone. The attack will begin today. You can enjoy your vacation with Persephone in Hades while I perform the attack. Issei smiled seeing the message. He then remembered that he could have created mayhem as he spoke. Wait for me, I have something to give you, and trust me, you will love it, Malik. Just wait for a few hours, Issei sent a message. A few moments later, Malik sent another message. I can't wait for what you have got for me, Malik responded, as Issei was ready to go. However, he needed to inform Persephone and Hades about it. As a voice was heard downstairs, Ais-chan, come downstairs, your breakfast is ready. Persephone called him as Issei exclaimed, I am coming. Issei got up as he readied himself and headed down. He did not want to make Persephone sad or angry, as she is one of the few that cared for him. As he went downstairs, he muttered with a sinister smile, "I hope you are ready for what comes next." Gregori. Chapter 4. Fall of Gregori. Azazel's office. Gregori. 10 a.m. Azazel was reviewing the videos of the fight between Malik and Lavinia. The power of telekinesis widened his eyes as he viewed it as some sort of legendary power. He remembered that Malik seemed like one of those bad guys from video games that belonged to the sci-fi section, especially the space part. He wondered whether there was a robe-masked man with a white cloak over his head, but either way that was not the time to think about it. He needed to find anything that could expose Malik's weakness. Damn it! Things are getting too complicated. Azazel shouts as he slams his desk. He can't notice anything that would expose Malik. The only time Malik was shown at the edge was when Lavinia used her balance breaker. However, even then, he was able to break out of it and eliminate Lavinia before she could regenerate the ice. There is only one thing we can do, and there is no turning back, Azazel thought with utter seriousness. Azazel then brought out a magic circle. He remembered on how Azazel brought him to his knees without even trying. Not a lot of people can do that, and especially not Azazel, until he showed it to him. His eyes were merciless, and he showed that he wouldn't hesitate to get his hands dirty if he had to. "Hey! I need you to help me with something." Azazel spoke with a serious tone as the voice on the other side agreed to it. Azazel was worried. Malik had not attacked for the last 2 days, and with his attacks being aggressive, he was afraid of the peace. It was too quiet, something he did not like. He had a really bad feeling about what will happen next. Scene change. At another side of Gregori, the remaining members of Team/Dog were having a look of incompetence and resentment. They hated Malik more than ever. And none showed this hatred more than Tobio himself. He was described to be a young handsome man with short black hair and pale gray eyes. We can't sit here and do nothing. Natsu Minigawa spoke in a sad tone. She was described to be a beautiful young woman with brown hair tied to her back. Natsu appears to wear an agent uniform. However, Tobio only thought of when Malik would come out from the shadows and strike them. There is only one thing we can do, and that is to ask Zeus to release Nyx. It is the only way. Sherwin and Adara spoke. She was described to be a beautiful young woman with European facial features with dark blonde hair with double ponytails. She has heterochromatic eyes with her right eye being light blue, while her left eye was pure black. Shigyun remembered as Issei asked for Nyx's release only for him to be denied coldly by the Greek god. Then all we have to do is lure Issei out and attract the two to fight. Cookie Samajima spoke in a haughty tone to which Tobio only shook his head. Cookie was described to be a handsome young man with spiked-up dyed brown hair and gray eyes. "You're crazy, Kaki." Issei has shown that he won't hesitate to use brutal force if needed to make sure to get his point across. He did not hesitate to mentally torture Kiba and torment Vali twice, along with nearly killing both her and Azazel. Tobio spoke seriously, but there was slight fear in his voice. Koki opened his eyes in terror. He remembered how Valerie was being treated. "So how is Suzaku?" Salja asked Shigyun with concern in her voice. Sa was described to be a young girl with brown hair and light brown eyes with wearing a school uniform. Tobio could only clench his fist in powerlessness due to what happened. "Suzaku is frustrated, she blames herself." Shigyun answered Sei's question as Tobio gets even more angrier remembering the state his second cousin was in. The talk continued on how they could convince Issei to help them. However, none of them bothered to give their past relationship with him much importance. But now that many needed his help and they knew that in order for him to get his help, he needed to do something in return. Near Gregori, 11 a.m., Malik was waiting for Issei. He wondered what he was going to do as he teleported using the ring he had. Malik then spoke, seeing him. "Took you long enough. I thought you were gonna ask me to not attack." "Sorry. Persephone and Hades wanted to spend some more time." Issei apologized with a sly smile while rubbing his head, to which Malik gave a hearty laugh. "No worries, I am not mad at you in the slightest, so what are you going to give me?" Malik asked as Issei spoke. "This is Annihilation Maker," Issei spoke with a smile as Malik's sweat dropped with him responding. You know I can't see that, right? Issei rubbed his head and chuckled in a goofy manner before changing into a much serious mode. So what I am going to give you is an army. Well, have you heard of a certain robot army? Issei spoke as his hands glowed a crimson magic, and underneath the both of them a magic circle formed, generating several beings that made Malik widen his eyes. Oh dear, this is great. Gregori doesn't stand a chance now. Malik spoke with excitement, as Issei spoke. And I am not even done. Issei spoke. Once the army was generated, Issei gave Malik the control of 2 generals, which Malik accepted gracefully and spoke in a cheerful tone. Oh, this is going to be much more easier. So what will you do now? Malik asked as Issei responded. I will go after my first target to corrupt. I hope you don't mind, Issei spoke, as Malik responded. No, I wouldn't mind. So who is your target this time? Malik asked with a curious tone. Elizabeth Lioness, it is time we start changing our tactics a little bit, and instead, we gather a bit of information before planning our next attack. After this one, that is, Issei spoke, turning his head to Malik with a sinister smile. As Malik nodded, he then responded. Very well. Have fun. Malik spoke as Issei teleported himself to Vatican. That was where he could enter heaven to begin his plan. Scene change. Time skip brought to you by Chibi Issei and Chibi Malik, creating the Death Star. Evan, 3:30 p.m. Well, Gabriel, it was easy to deal with you along with the rest of your brave saints, Issei spoke with a mocking smile. As he touched Sarah's frozen body, it felt like her whole soul is completely gone. Gabriel was unable to move. Her face had become the same as Akino's, except unlike her movements being robotic, hers was frozen. As she slumped on the ground, she only had her eyes opened. Her desire to fight was completely gone. She wasn't able to recognize Issei at all. Issei walked ahead, trying to take some things from heaven. However, this was nothing but an act to lure his target, his real target. You bastard, you are going to pay for what you have done. A voice shouted, as Seal turned his attention to the being. It was his target, Elizabeth Lioness, just as he had planned. Elizabeth is a beautiful young woman with a slender yet curvaceous physique, a big bust and regular height. She has very pale skin, large light blue eyes which can turn orange while gaining a triskel, and long silver hair reaching her waist. She wears a white dress with a purple cloth wound on her neck, a golden waist ornament. She wore white heels and golden leg ornaments as well. Elizabeth had a murderous look on her face. She recognized him. He was Issei Haidu, Dee's older brother, as Issei spoke with a cold smile. Oh, please don't act like that. All I am doing is judging your boss for her crimes, Issei spoke sweetly, as he continued, besides, wrath is a sin, and you may fall. Elizabeth gritted her teeth in fury. He was able to take down Gabriel when she was at her most weakest. You're a vile monster for doing this. Don't you have a heart? Elizabeth shouted in fury, as Issei looked at her with a smile and spoke. You are right, I have no heart. Think I left it in my other shirt, Issei spoke jokingly, as Elizabeth became even more angry. After which he lost his smile and turned serious. In that case, shall we begin? Issei spoke while summoning his boosted gear. Elizabeth was worried on whether she will make it out of the fight alive or not to mention, she needed to secure Gabriel and get out of here. Let's spice things up, shall we? Issei spoke with a smile as 2 wings came from his behind. This was the divine dividing came from behind. Elizabeth was really frightened as Issei spoke with a smile. Fusion balance break. Vanishing Welsh dragon balance breaker. Drake's voice boomed across the heaven with Issei being careful to apply a barrier so as to prevent his aura from leaking outside, as well as preventing Elizabeth's escape. The balance breaker was described to be that of having both of the gears incorporated in it. His arms were similar to his Welsh dragon counterpart, while several parts of his armor had the vanishing dragon aspects. His armor had both green and blue gems belonging to each of the gears. This armor will not stop me from saving Lady Gabriel, Elizabeth declared while bringing out 2 light spears with Issei only raising his hand. Drag then chants. Divide, 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 divide. Dreg commanded as her spears reduced to nothingness, but Elizabeth refused to give in. Let there be light. Elizabeth chanted one of her strongest spells to subdue Issei. Elizabeth fired off drill-shaped projectiles as Issei spoke. It's useless. Drag then spoke. Divide. 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 The drill-shaped projectiles were reduced to nothingness. Elizabeth gritted her teeth, in fury. Her strongest spell was nullified into nothingness. Issei was bored. He dashed towards Elizabeth before she could react. He grabbed her by the head and slammed her on the ground. At enough, Issei spoke in a mocking tone as Elizabeth responded. I am not done yet. Light explosion. Elizabeth shouted, as several beams of light surrounded Issei. Understanding what he had to do, Issei's wings glowed as Drake announced. Half dimension. Drake declared, as the light beams that were about to attack Issei reduced the size of the objects, which included her light beams as well. Elizabeth was horrified at what happened as Issei started to fire a dragon shot at Elizabeth as he jumped away from the explosion. Once the dust settled, he saw Elizabeth groaning in pain. Some of her feathers were on the ground, and she was bruised. As Issei approached her, some of her clothes were also torn. My, you put up quite a fight. You have potential, Issei spoke in amazement. The fact that a mid-rank angel was able to put up a fight truly amazed him. Tell me then you have one. Elizabeth spoke weakly as Issei chuckled, surprising the angel. Now why would I do that when I have some use for you? Essie spoke with a smile as Elizabeth was horrified. She was thinking that Essie would torture her. I would like you to join me in my goals. You will be useful to me after all. Elizabeth internally was happy that there was no torture, but she would never join someone like him as she spoke with pure defiance. Despite being in this condition, I won't cooperate with people like you. Nothing in this world will make me join you. In that case, I guess you need some motivation. Issei deactivated his balance breaker and brought out Althika Tyrant. What is that? Elizabeth asked with fear and confusion. Issei then responded, This is Althika Tyrant, one of the holy relics, also known as the Holy Nail. Elizabeth widened her eyes. Him getting one of the holy relics was a huge issue, as Issei continued, and yes, it is a longiness that has been undiscovered by the factions, and this can allow me to control anyone by rewriting their memories and personality, Issei continued, while Elizabeth feared the situation she was in. Elizabeth then spoke with a fearful tone. Then no, please keep that away from me, I beg you. Don't worry, it will only hurt you a little. Issei spoke with a smile as 2 nails generated of light were lodged into her arm. The last thing were pleased before she passed out. Scene change. Inside Elizabeth's mindscape, 4:15 p.m., Elizabeth had curled into a ball as her memories and personality were being rewritten completely by Issei's desires. There was nothing she can do but watch in helplessness. However, she was surprised when Issei approached her. What do you want? Elizabeth asked in sadness. You have already beaten me, and now you will use me to destroy my loved ones. Elizabeth spoke as tears fall from her eyes. She was helpless as Issei shook his head sideways. You are not wrong. I will use you to destroy your loved ones, Issei spoke, deciding to not lie to her. But do you want to know why I am doing this? I mean, you hate someone for a reason. Well, most of the time, Elizabeth looked at Issei, teary-eyed, as she asked, why? How about I let you see my memories and you be the judge? Okay. Issei spoke. Elizabeth, seeing no choice in the matter, agreed. Issei then used his gear to project all his memories onto Elizabeth. This brought her to knees after witnessing everything as she spoke in a weak tone, so Die Hideout is a liar. All tears fall from her eyes realizing that Gabriel loved someone who was a bad person on the inside. Not only is he a liar, he always hated me from day one, always managed to get his parents' attention with his good grades, good personality, and good nature. As a result, he became spoiled child and started to take credit for everything I did, always desired more and more, and that is what made him into the man that is today. Issei's tone had a mixture of sadness and anger in it, remembering more of his past. Elizabeth looked away, ashamed that many, including Gabriel, looked up to her, with her master even loving. But wait, then why don't we talk to Lady Gabriel and the other faction leaders? You don't need to even do this. Elizabeth spoke, realizing that she can still bring back the hero, To which Issei sighed in the girl's naivety, as he responded, "Do you honestly think that I wouldn't have tried this before, Elizabeth?" Issei spoke with slight anger in his voice, which made Elizabeth flinch. "Why do you think I asked Malik to put the hallucinations on her? It was so that she could see the error of her ways, but did that work? No. She is in disbelief, believing that angels are more accurately saris like her are incapable of doing evil deeds." Issei spoke while Elizabeth looked down in sadness, thinking that Issei is not wrong. "You know, I used to think like you, that people will one day change," Issei spoke while shrugging, "but that day never came, they still remained the same. Hell, they even view me as a tool that they can use and discard whenever the hell they feel like it. Isn't there anything we can do?" Elizabeth spoke with sadness as Issei continued, "That is why I need your help, Elizabeth. The factions are on a downward spiral with the fact that they failed to see the error of their ways. They still see D as their hero. I mean, he has shown signs of fear right in front of me whenever I showed even a little of my power." Issei spoke. His tone was full of disappointment. "The factions are a lost cause. Time and time again they failed to see their mistake, so will you help me, Elizabeth?" Issei spoke with a neutral tone. As Elizabeth looked at Issei in surprise, the memory and personality alteration were being altered at a steady rate. Issei's words were genuine. His words so far held no deceit. He told her the truth, even going so far as to showing her his memories. She saw him as the true savior of the world. Dai was never the savior to begin with. She couldn't help but hold affection for it. However, she remembered that her personalities and memories are being altered. "I accept to serve the real savior of this world, but then I would be gone. Our conversation, everything we talked about will be for nothing." Elizabeth spoke, as Issei responded, "You see, the holy nails control the personality and merge I chose, so I can merge both of the personalities, the old and the new one that I am creating, so that you can willingly serve me while not hesitating to do anything. I will convert you into a dark angel, so you can still stay in heaven and help me in my quest. So do you accept?" Issei asked. "I accept," Elizabeth responded with zero hesitation as Issei nodded before teleporting outside as he spoke with a smile. "See you on the other side." New Elizabeth. Issei spoke with Elizabeth doing the smiling. Scene change 6:07:30 p.m. Elizabeth had woken up. She saw that Issei was looking at her as he spoke. "Oh, so you're finally awake. How do you feel?" Issei asked. "I feel like I am reborn. Thank you for making me see the truth, Lord Issei." Elizabeth spoke with admiration, as Issei spoke with a serious tone. "As much as I would like to receive gratitude, get up, we have work to do," Issei commanded as Elizabeth nodded as she spoke. "So how can I help?" Elizabeth asked, as Issei responded. "Simple. I need you to gather information on the holy relics, as well as the heaven system. I will be checking on Malik and seeing how the Gregori attack is going on right now." Issei spoke with a serious tone as he created a ring, and as Elizabeth spoke, "I won't disappoint you, Lord Issei." Elizabeth exclaimed in admiration as Issei nodded, as he then remembered, "Oh, I forgot here." Issei brought out a glove that looked like a purple glove similar to his Lightning Slayer gloves, as he then created a special gem using Annihilation Maker. He then enchanted the crystal with something called as Dark Light, a special metal that incorporates special magic that would enhance the user's strength and abilities, while also making them undetectable and susceptible to any detection abilities of the heaven. "What is this, Lord Issei?" Elizabeth asked with surprise as he spoke. "This is a Dark Light gem. When you absorb it, it will give you a burst of power, and you can hide yourself in heaven, and nobody will sense that something is wrong with you unless you want to reveal yourself. Oh, and it also prevents you from falling no matter what sin you perform." He spoke with a sense of pride, proud of his creation, as Elizabeth did not hesitate and take the stone and absorbed it into her being. Elizabeth started to glow with a dark purple light as Essie watched to know in happiness that his abilities are working perfectly as planned. Elizabeth's wings changed to a purple for a split second before reverting back to her white self. In addition, she grew 2 additional pairs of wings, which allowed her to become even stronger. "Oh, and one more thing, you can hide your wings," Issei spoke with a neutral tone as Elizabeth nodded. He then ends by saying, "I will take my leave, and you know what you have to do, right? Elizabeth nods as Issei teleports out of there. Elizabeth looked at Gabriel with disgust, thinking why did she serve her so blindly before she showed the truth. Scene change, Gregori, 5 p.m. The whole faction of the fallen angels were in chaos. As they were being decimated by Malik and his forces, many were being killed without any mercy. They were primarily B-1 battle droids, were 1.93 meters tall and had yellow body armor and were humanoid droids. In a singular number, they were no better than a low-class fallen, but they made up for with their numbers. And there were 1,000, if not tens of thousands of these things. Then those battle droids were accompanied by their commanding officers, command battle droids. They looked the same, however, with a small change. Their plating at certain locations were slightly altered. These were much smarter than the regular battle droids, and one controlled a legion of 500 bone battle droids as well as B-2 super battle droids. Fire in the hole, show no mercy to these crows, the droid officer commanded as the battle droids responded. Roger. Roger. The battle droids fired their cannons and weapons at them, defeating and killing several of the fallen angels. Run. They are too strong. One of the fallen angels shouted, as their light spears barely had much effect on them, meaning that they were made up of anti-leader lighter racing material. Several others were running away, but they were being mercilessly gunned down. Some who tried to survive begged God to come and save them, only to see a huge silvery bulkier droid looking down upon them. The droid fired their hand lasers at the fleeing felons. Filled with fear, they ran as fast as possible with the commanding droids, commanding them to attack them without mercy. However, for the fallen angels, hope came in the form of Penemu, a fallen cadre. She was described to be a purple-haired woman with strong-looking eyes and big chest showed up. She was not happy as she shouted, "You droids will pay for what you have done." Penemu angrily glared at the battle droids. However, another voice came out. "I believe I am the one that will be the one you will fight, fallen scum." The voice declared. Penemu turned her attention to see that a robotic figure was approaching her. The being was described to be mechanical just like the other droids. However, he had a metal mask that had two side platings, almost in the form of a ship, which was wide in color, had 4 arms, 2 legs that were cybernetic. His eyes were yellow as he glared into Penemu. His hands were metallic just like the rest of his battle droids. He had a medal and a skeleton that covered almost his entire body, leaving no small traces like his original. General Grievous. "You came," the commanding exclaimed, spoke with a surprise as Grievous looked at Penemu and responded, "Back off, Commander. I will deal with this fallen slime by myself. Keep pressing on the attack." Saying that, the general removed his cloak and twirled his hands, revealing 2 green blades and 2 red blades in each of his hands. The fallen gritted her teeth in fury, as she shouted, "We will pay for what you have done, Grievous, and then Malik will be next." Grievous only chuckled in response to what the fallen angel said. "Then by all means, cadre, come and try," Grievous taunted as he started twirling his blades at extremely high frequency, destroying the grounds as he came closer. Penemu took to the skies and fired some light spears, which the general easily dodged by turning into his skittering form as he skittered throughout the corridor, other droids to keep firing so as to limit the cadre's movement. "Damn it!" Penemu gritted her teeth in fury as several blaster bolts were aimed at her. As she was hit by several of them, Grievous saw this opportunity and dashed in front of her. The cadre kept firing huge barrages of light spears at Grievous, but he dodged every single one of them by skittering. Once Grievous reached the correct distance, he used all 4 of his light blades to unleash devastating strikes aimed at her. Her vital organs were damaged. He also damaged her skin as well, with several light blade scars showing up. She also had internal bleeding as well. Penemu shouted in pain as she looked at the general in hateful eyes as she shouted, "You damn cheater." Grievous only laughed in response as he spoke. "I believe that in a war, there is no such thing as rules." Grievous towered over her body as she fell unconscious. The general didn't bother to check whether she was dead or alive. All he was given were orders to bring the fallen faction to his knees. The commanding officer then asked, "What should we do now?" "One of the cadres has been defeated," the droid asked. As Grievous responded, "Be pushing, I want to see this place decimated." Grievous ordered as Malik told him to do that. The droid accepted the command and spoke. Roger. Roger. The command droid, as he informed the rest of his command droids, who commanded their legions to begin a full-scale assault on their side. Meanwhile, on the other side, Malik was taking on the cadres Barakweel and Azazel, who were both furious that their faction was attacked, while Shemizai, Tamiel, Sahariel and Amrose were dealing with the rest of the battle droids, along with Team/Dog. Their numbers were a massive problem, along with the new droid that was attacking them, being the roller droid known as Dratica's. The Dratica's barriers were almost impenetrable, with neither of the fallen angels trying to pierce through them or even break them. Due to this, Amrose and Sahariel had fallen due to the droid's barrage. Shemazai gritted his teeth in fury, unleashing several barrages of light spears with him trying his best to keep up with the droids. But their numbers were too high. As this was going on, Barakweel unleashed a stream of holy lightning at Malik, who blocked it like it was nothing. He absorbed it and used lightning barrage, another byproduct of his telekinetic powers. Azazel feared this would happen, believing that magic won't affect him since he knew from his fight against Lavinia that magic won't do much. He unleashed the combined electric assault on Barakweel, who screamed in pain due to the pain. Bahia Barakweel shouted. He fell to the ground groaning in pain due to the electricity wounds he had received. It was too much for the cadre to take. Barakweel, Azazel shouted in worry and fear, as Malik taunted. How does it feel to have a taste of your medicine? Malik laughed as he saw Barakweel twitching in pain due to taking damage from his own electric current. You bastard, Azazel shouted in response, only for him to be pushed away by his telekinesis as he turned his attention to Barakweel. Azazel feared that he might suck the life from him. No. Stay away from him. Azazel shouted, begging for Malik to stay away from Barakweel. The fallen's life energy. I wonder how that would taste. Malik's hands charged as he started sucking out the life energy from the fallen angel, unlike Lavinia, who had a predictable amount of life energy due to her human biology. It is unknown for how long fallen angels or angels would live, but many of them were from the beginning of the Great War. Malik started to suck out Barakweel's life energy as he struggled to escape Malik's grasp. Team/Dog and the others tried to stop Malik, but they were ambushed by more droids who stopped them at every step. Tobio and Shizaku were the most annoyed by this as they wanted to fight Malik to save Barakweel. Moments later, Barakweel was nothing but a husk of his former self. Malik had sucked out his life energy completely. He was barely alive with only a few life force remaining in his body. He looked at Malik in fear. His time had come. Barakweel Azazel spoke weakly, while severe difficulty in managing to knock and destroy some of the battle droids who disappeared after being eliminated. You fraud. Well, now if you may, we would be dealing with the others. Malik walked away as he turned his attention to Azazel, who was ready with multiple light spears. He hated that he did not have the Downfall Dragon spear right now since it was with Asia. However, Malik was suddenly ambushed by Tobio, who attacked him from the left side as he shouted with tears in his eyes. You bastard! How many more will you kill? Tobio summoned a scythe using Jin, which was the avatar version of Canis Leakin. Tobio was proficient in scythe usage as he flung his scythe towards Malik, who blocked his whole body by his telekinesis with his scythe hitting near his face. I must admit you are good with the scythe. Unfortunately, Malik walked closer to Tobio, who glared at him as he continued, you are weak if your body is unable to move. However, Jean bit through his arm, making him grunt in pain. Tobio was released from his restraints and started to attack him with his shadow side, with his one hand immobilized by Jean and the other one. Despite this, Malik was an excellent duelist. He used his skills to block most of the strikes, but without his second hand, he was vulnerable. Though Bio managed to disarm him and bring him to his knees as Azazel started to approach him after dealing with the battle droids, they were ready to kill him for what he did. However, unbeknownst to anyone, Malik was feigning the situation of his defeat. Any last words? Azazel spoke in a cold tone. He was going to avenge Barakweel's defeat at his hands. Just a few. Pull it out of the sky. Malik shouted the last part as several bombs were right above them. Azazel and Tobio were shocked. They tried to eliminate him, but it was too late. Malik was suddenly glowing a bright blue color, and he and the droid army, along with his weapon, had disappeared. The bombs had resulted in massive explosions throughout Gregori, taking the lives of several others along with injuring and critically injuring many more. However, the one that died was someone unfortunate for the factions. No Khaki Shogun spoke with sadness, tears falling from her eyes before passing out due to her injuries. Khaki no longer had a pulse, which Shogun sensed as one of the bombs fell right above him. He was no longer breathing. It was a miracle that his body was not obliterated by the bombs, unlike the fallen angels that were a victim. Azazel and Tobio were knocked unconscious, with them being critically injured. Most of the Slash-Dog members were also critically injured. The ones that were still awake were only a select few. The doctors came to take the injured as well as the critically injured. The bombs along with the assault brought the whole faction to their knees. The doctors were horrified by what they saw. "Don't just stand there, help us, Shemas," I shouted helplessly as the doctors snapped out of the state and took the injured, while the critically injured were given the most priority. They checked on Barakrel, who was completely damaged by the bombs combined with his life force drain. He couldn't handle it anymore as he passed away. The doctors sighed in defeat. Barakweel, along with Cookie Samajima, had passed away. Today marked a grey day for the fallen angels. Gregori had fallen, and Malik and his forces seemed to be unstoppable. "We have no choice, Shemhiz," I spoke angrily. It would take at least a decade or a century to recover Gregori like it was. Not to mention, he had no choice but to accept Issei's offer since there was no other way out. Negotiation was no longer an option. Scene change, unknown location, 8 p.m. Malik, Grievous, and the droid army all teleported themselves to an unknown location as a voice spoke. "It's a good thing you gave me the signal before it was too late." A voice spoke from the shadow. The two looked at him and spoke. "Those bombs came in handy. I doubt Gregori would recover after what had happened." Malik spoke with a smile. "And it is all thanks to you, General Kalani," Malik continued. The tactical droid had shown up that was dark silver in color with light silver on several sides. He had several yellow marks also on him. He was humanoid, and had light red eyes on his face. I figured that even without the bombs, our percentage of winning this battle against the fallen angels were a 90%. However, I increased that to 99.9% win rate. Kalani spoke while deducing the odds. After all, he is the tactical general Issei had created to help Malik win this war. While General Grievous was created for ruthlessness and aggression, he is aggressive when it comes to eliminating targets, and he could act as a secondary commander under Malik whenever he needs to attack. "Aside from that, I think our attack is a success," Grievous spoke. "Penema was barely a challenge to the metal-eyed monstrosity. Now all we need to do is tell Issei about this." Malik spoke as both the generals nodded in agreement. Scene change. A few kilometers away from Gregori, 8:15 p.m. "So they did it," Issei spoke coldly as he was looking at what remains of the fallen faction. As he looks apathetically, he knew who his next targets are. "Goddess Artemis and Gondal, the Valkyrie of Asgard, will be my next targets," Issei spoke coldly. He knew those having both of them by his side would be amazing. The reason is Artemis is the best choice when it comes to infiltration since she can leave without a trace, as well as she is an excellent huntress. Another reason was that the Greek faction was one of the strongest that was a part of the alliance. Even if Hades does not take part in that, it could still hold its own even against the several of their enemies. As for Gondal, there were also two reasons. She is a master magician, and if that does not work, she is a master in hand-to-hand combat as well. She would definitely help in the future war if he gets her help. Not to mention, she is Rogera's grandmother, one of the girls that is with Dee. It would be fun to turn her against her own granddaughter. When Issei saw her from the shadows, she was surprisingly young, not what he was expecting from what someone would call her, their grandmother. Even though Rogers gave him looks of disgust due to the rumors, she was one of the few that did not overdo it, like Rios or Aquino. Either way, the fact that her grandmother turned against her would shatter her completely. Issei watched as the doctors were taking the injured to the hospital to take care of themselves. He then gets a message from Malik as he decides to teleport back to the unknown location. Scene change. 6th Heaven, 9 p.m. Elizabeth was doing as Issei instructed her to do so. He had already disabled the alarms when he had entered inside. And dealt with most, if not all of the brave saints under Gabriel to infiltrate. She was tasked with finding the holy relics that belonged to the church. She was trying to check more information about the rest of the holy relics as she spoke with a bit of a frustrated tone. This is harder than I thought. Elizabeth spoke while shaking her head sideways. I need to find more information to help L'Oreal to say no. Gabriel could barely say anything as she looked at Elizabeth. This isn't you, Elizabeth. Gabriel spoke while looking at one of her brave saints. I know that you lied to me about Dai being the hero. I was a fool to listen to you, and I know that we angels are weak due to the power Lord Issei showed me. Elizabeth spoke with a sweet smile while caressing the seraph's cheek. The seraph could only watch, unable to do anything as tears of frustration fell from her eyes. The alarms in the heaven had been disabled with no one even figuring out what had happened. I hope Malik and the others are able to perform their mission well. Lord Issei won't like it if I stay useless to him. Elizabeth spoke with a smile as she continued reviewing the information. As she did the review, her eyes turned deep purple, implying that the power has been integrated well into her body. Once she finds the information, she takes one last look at Gabriel as she speaks. Lord Issei will lead us to a new world, old friend. She walks away while carrying the information needed, leaving Gabriel alone. She was about to reach the door, leaving the guilt-ridden Gabriel as her wings constantly flickered from white to black. She looked at Elizabeth as she went out of her sight, but not out of the sixth heaven. I am so sorry, Elizabeth. This is all my fault. This wouldn't have happened if I had used my ability on his, Gabriel thought while she remembered her encounter with Malik, only to find a shocking truth about him. Thanks for listening to my video. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and comment below your favorite part. Sayonara, see you in the next video.